Chapter 1494. Many people were right. Not only did Yu Tian want to save his face, he couldn't let it go. Supreme warriors in the divinity were at the peak of the divinity. Many people didn't even have the guts to talk about them in public, let alone provoke them. The more powerful a warrior was, the more he cared about his reputation. A man lived by his face, and a tree lived by its bark. Apex experts were all big shots with status and prestige. Usually, if anyone spat on their face, they would kill their entire family. But now, not only did Lu Li spit on them, but he also shed all pretenses. If he could not kill Lu Li, Yu Tian would be ashamed for the rest of his life. Next time he met other supreme warriors in the divinity, they would be reminded of how Lu Li killed Yu Linglong and the massacre at the Overlord City. Yu Tian, aren't you very powerful? How can you face others when you can't even kill a mighty warrior in the divinity? How can you pretend to be powerful? Not only would Yu Tian be ashamed, but the cohesion of the Overlord's mansion and the loyalty of the affiliated forces would be affected. Following such a leader made them feel ashamed, and they couldn't lift their heads when they went out. Therefore, Yu Tian went to the center of the Yuyan land with the King Pan token. He didn't go after Lu Li. Instead, he went to a famous race, the Wandering Falcon Race. This was a kind of demon race that could hide in the air like falcons. Powerful warriors of the Wandering Falcon Race couldn't be detected even by the super mighty warriors in the divinity. They were as fast as the wind. The average Wandering Falcon Race could be as fast as a mighty warrior in the divinity. What's more, they were very good at scouting. The Wandering Falcon Race was recognized as the best scouts at the Yuyan land. Yu Tian brought the King Pan token with him and offered a high price. The Wandering Falcon Race agreed readily to help Yu Tian search for Lu Li. The leader of the Wandering Falcon Race was very generous. He mobilized tens of thousands of wandering falcons to search for Lu Li all over the world. Yu Tian didn't go anywhere. He stayed with the Wandering Falcon Race. When the Wandering Falcon Race found Lu Li, he would sneak over and kill Lu Li. Unfortunately, the land of Yuyan was vast. Although the Wandering Falcon Race was fast, it was difficult for them to find Lu Li immediately. It took more than half a month before there was any news. But this was not good news. The clan leader of the Peregrine Falcon Race went to Yu Tian and said, "According to accurate information, Lu Li just showed up near the ancient demon's dead ground the day before yesterday. However, you also know that the terrain inside is complicated and dangerous. The Wandering Falcon tribe does not specialize in prohibitions, so we can only confirm that he is in the ancient demon graveyard. We cannot pinpoint his exact location." Ancient demon dead ground. Yu Tian frowned. He had entered that place before and had been trapped there for hundreds of years. However, he had gained something. After he came out, he thought that he would never go back in again. He didn't expect that Lu Li would actually go in here. Mansion Master Yu. The leader of the Wandering Falcon Race handed over an interspatial ring and said, "Since we cannot locate Lu Li accurately, we will only take half of the divine source." "No need." Yu Tian waved his hand and said, "I still need to rely on the Wandering Falcon tribe in the future. I'll take my leave first. If you have any information on Lu Li, please send me a copy." "Sure." The clan leader of the Peregrine Falcon Race put away the interspatial ring. He thought about it and said, "Mansion Master, you be careful. You know that there are many natural formations in the ancient demon's dead ground. The more powerful the formation, the stronger the backlash. If something happens to you just to hunt down Lu Li, the gains will not make up for the losses." "I know what to do." Yu Tian nodded. Then he said with determination, "I will go no matter how dangerous it is. Otherwise, how can I show my face in the future?" Yu Tian made up his mind. He cupped his fist to the clan leader of the Peregrine Falcon Race and strode out. He boarded a flying phoenix and flew toward the northwest. Alas, even though the clan leader of the Peregrine Falcon Race had taken the form of a human, he still retained some of the characteristics of the monster race. He had a pointy face, a protruding mouth, and monkey cheeks. His nose was hooked, and his eyes were sharp. He sighed and said, The land of Yuyan that has been peaceful for hundreds of years is going to be in turmoil again. A malefic star that can turn the divinity upside down has come to the land of Yuyan. Something big is going to happen. Luli had entered the ancient demon's dead ground, which was located in the western part of the land of Yuyan. The ancient demon's dead ground was almost the size of a prefecture in the divinity. From the outside, the ancient demon's dead ground looked like a desert, which was easy to find. Luli was in the desert. He was with the deaf Taoist and Qi Shi'er. Little White was standing on his shoulder. According to the deaf Taoist, the outer area of the ancient demon's dead ground was not dangerous. It was just that there were many formations of illusion that could make people lose their way. That was why Luli let them out and Little White. It is so hot. Qi Shi'er's forehead was covered in sweat. She had reached the level of a mighty warrior in the divinity. Even so, she was drenched in sweat. The deaf Taoist was in an even worse state. The deaf Taoist was in a worse state. He was also sweating profusely. He opened his cracked lips and said, "It is hot outside." It is said that in the ancient times, the ancient demon's dead ground was the place where the master of the monster and the master of the human race fought. The master of the monster had a primordial treasure of the fire family. However, the master of humans smashed it. The source of fire in the chaos treasure spilled out and formed the landscape of the ancient demon's dead ground. What? Luli was taken aback. The ancient demon's dead ground should be the size of a prefecture, right? It was actually because a treasure had been smashed and burned by the flames. Just how terrifying was this primordial spirit heavenly treasure, right? Luli remembered something. He took out a white silk dress from his interspatial ring and handed it to Qi Shi'er. "I remember this silk dress can protect you from the heat. Do you want to try it?" Luli was a mighty warrior in the divinity as well, but his body was so strong that he could not feel the heat. Qi Shi'er took it over. She was reluctant to put it down. She sat down and began to work on it. Luli stayed by her side and used psychic power to check the surroundings. Should anything happen, Luli would let them go and use spatial force to suppress the disturbance or fly away. Fortunately, not many dare to come in. Those that came in before must be in there. After the time for 3 incense sticks to burn, the space in the distance changed. Then a dark temple emerged in midair. "What is that?" Luli's pupils contracted. He stared at the temple that suddenly appeared in midair. The temple appeared out of thin air, and it was real. On the walls of the temple, there were strange patterns of beasts, and there was a kind of intimidating energy. The deaf Taoist took a look. Calmly, he explained, "Master, don't be surprised. This is a common sight in the ancient demon's dead ground. This is an illusion. Illusions like this are common in the ancient demon's dead ground. But I think the illusions are real. It's just that not many people can find them." "How can we not find them?" Luli was confused. He thought for a while and said, "Are many places covered by inhibition formations? Can we not find those places without cracking the inhibition formations?" "I think so." The deaf Taoist nodded. "We are still in the outer area. Inside, there will be more inhibition formations and more natural formations of illusion. If we do not know how to crack the inhibition formations, we may never get to the core area. It is said that the inhibition formations in the core area are stronger. The core area is the land of death. Many relics are in the land of death. Not only are you powerful, you must know how to crack the inhibition formations and be lucky to find relics. Is it that amazing?" His tone turned cold. "Scram, if I see you again, I won't show any mercy." The power of space disappeared, and everyone could move. That cultivator's eyes were filled with horror. He did not dare to stay any longer. He quickly fled through the quicksand and soon disappeared into the distance. Giggle. Qi Shi'er's divine sense detected the disbelief and fear in this person's eyes. She let out a tinkling laugh. The deaf Taoist looked at Luli with mixed feelings. How many years had it been? Luli could defeat mighty warriors in the divinity easily. He had been in the Asmodeans for thousands of years. If it were not for Luli, he would only be as strong as an average immortal. "Let's go." Luli didn't take it to heart. He waved his hand, and Little White flew away from his shoulder and ran forward happily. Little White was obedient and didn't go far. There was no road in this desert, so Luli had no choice but to run towards the northwest. Another 6 hours later, Luli and the others finally encountered the first inhibition formation. It was because Luli found an oasis and a pond in the distance. They had been wandering around in the desert for a long time. Naturally, Luli would not miss out on such a good place to rest. When they walked toward the oasis, they realized something was wrong. As soon as they stepped into the oasis, the scenery changed. It turned gray. All they could see was sand. Psychic power was limited here. Luli could only see less than 100 feet away. The wind was so strong that not even he could stand still. Formation of illusion. Luckily, Luli had been holding Qi Shi'er's hand. She was not blown away by the wind. The deaf Taoist was not strong enough. He was blown away immediately. Little White was smart enough to grab Luli's neck. Buzzing, Luli took out the wicked bead at once, trying to put Qi Shi'er and Little White in. However, the space here was restricted. He could not use the wicked bead. Qi Shi'er, do not let go of me at any time. Little White, hide in my sleeve. Luli said. Qi Shi'er reached out her hands and grabbed Luli's arm. Little White snuck into Luli's sleeve so that the wind would not blow it away. I wonder where the deaf Taoist has gone. Luli frowned. He moved slowly and used psychic power to check the strange formation of illusion. The wind was getting stronger. Luli's steps were drifting. He walked for the time for one incense stick to burn. Nothing changed. He frowned. This formation of illusion is very advanced. It is completely different from the ones I've seen before. Luli said to Blood Fairy as he sensed the wind was getting stronger. A tentacle reached out from the wicked bead and pierced into the ground. Luli tried to sense the surroundings as well, trying to find the core of the formation. Master, there are no patterns down there. After a moment, Blood Fairy said, the patterns of the formation of illusion are not in the ground. This must be a live formation. I know where the patterns are. Luli replied, the sand in the sky is the formation stones. The sand in the sand are forming complex patterns. This is a live formation and a very advanced one at that. There are too many formation stones. It will be difficult to crack the formation using normal means. Master, do you have a way? Blood Fairy asked. Yes, Luli said confidently. This formation is very complicated. The sand is used as formation stones. When the sand is flying around, it will automatically form a miraculous formation of illusion. As time goes by, the sand will fly faster and faster. The formation will change from an illusion to a formation of destruction. But I don't want to crack the formation right now. Luli opened his eyes and said to Blood Fairy, the formation contains many truths of laws in heaven and earth. In other words, the formation is transformed from laws in heaven and earth. I want to study it. It may be helpful for my future cultivation. Luli once heard that Taoist formations were transformed from the laws of heaven and earth. If one had a deep understanding of formations, one's abilities would not be weak. Luli had always thought this was just a rhetorical question. Today, he finally understood the truth when he saw the formation of illusion. At the very least, the laws in heaven and earth in the formation were clear. If he could study this formation, he might be able to learn a fundamental principle of laws in heaven and earth. Shi'er, hold on to me. Don't be afraid. Luli sat down with his legs crossed. He closed his eyes and tried to sense the ripples around him. Qi Shi'er sat down with her legs crossed and held on tightly to Luli. The wind was getting stronger. Soon, Luli and Qi Shi'er were blown up. They were floating around in the air like 2 grains of sand. Chapter 1496. Luli was confident that he could crack the formation because he could make use of spatial force. As long as he could suppress the sand with spatial force, the formation would not be able to function. By then, it would be too easy for Luli to change the patterns of the formation. Once the formation patterns were changed, the formation would be cracked. Luli spun around in the air, and Qi Shi'er flew away with him. Luli did not pay attention to her. He focused on sensing the surroundings and studying the laws of heaven and earth contained in the formation. Some things might not be useful now, but they were laws of heaven and earth that could be helpful in the future. Time moved on. The gale was getting stronger. Lu Li and Qi Shi'er were tumbling around in the air. Qi Shi'er was nervous. The gale was getting stronger. She was afraid that she would be blown away and be separated from Lu Li. Lu Li's eyes were closed. He reached out a hand and grabbed Qi Shi'er's hand. His grip was like an iron clamp. Qi Shi'er felt a bit of pain, but somehow she was relieved. Lu Li knew that he could not go on. The formation of illusion was turning into a formation of destruction. If he could not crack the formation, Qi Shi'er would be in danger, and the deaf Taoist might die in there as well. Lu Li calmed himself down to feel. Somehow, he sensed something, but he had no time to dwell on it. He abruptly waved his hand forward, and an invisible force pressed down, suppressing the space within a radius of several miles. The sand was suddenly frozen in midair. Lu Li opened his eyes. He glanced around. Soon his eyes glowed. He poured out divine energy in the blink of an eye. Bang, 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 some sand exploded. Lu Li had only destroyed thousands of grains of sand. However, it was as if a single spark had set a prairie ablaze. More grains of sand exploded, kicking up a cloud of dust. Lu Li and Qi Shi'er slid down. Whoosh! From the distance came a noise. It was the deaf Taoist's joyful voice. Master, you have cracked the formation of illusion. Master, you are mighty. Let's go. Follow me. Lu Li threw a casual look. The deaf Taoist was covered in blood. Lu Li nodded to himself. It was a good time to crack the formation. Any later, and the deaf Taoist would have died. He dashed toward a direction, and the deaf Taoist followed him. In the time for half an incense stick to burn, after a flash of white light, Lu Li, Qi, 11 and the deaf Taoist came out. Oasis! Qi Shi'er cried out in joy. She couldn't contain her joy when she saw the pool and instinctively wanted to charge towards it. But remembering that Lu Li and the deaf Taoist were here, she stopped shyly. Lu Li checked with psychic power to make sure that nobody was in the oasis. He nodded, patted Qi Shi'er's dirty face, and said, "Do you want to take a bath?" Qi Shi'er nodded embarrassedly and looked down. Although she was dirty, her shy expression was still very moving. Wait a moment. I will help you set up a restriction. Lu Li patted Qi Shi'er's head affectionately and flew over. Formation stones flew around in his hands. Soon, he built a simple inhibition formation. Buzz! Lu Li put the deaf Taoist into the wicked bead and said with a smile, "Go into the inhibition formation. I will protect you from the outside." "Thank you, brother." Qi Shi'er smiled sweetly and dashed into the inhibition formation. Lu Li poured out divine energy, and a white shield came out, covering up Qi Shi'er and half of the pool. Squeak, squeak, little White sneaked out from Lu Li's sleeve and dashed to the other half of the pool to take a bath happily. Lu Li thought about it and flew over as well. He dashed into the pond in his robe. After a quick cleaning, Lu Li's robe was torn apart and another robe appeared. He put it on in a flash. Lu Li flew up and sat on the grass to rest. Splash, splash. The inhibition formation could block sight and psychic power, but not sound. From the pool came the sound of running water. Clearly, Qi Shi'er was taking a bath. Lu Li's mind was filled with images of a beauty coming out of a bath. But he did not feel much lust. Instead, he was filled with tenderness. He had truly regarded Qi Shi'er as his younger sister. He did not have any feelings for her. Qi Shi'er had many good qualities in the world. She was like a piece of pure land that could arouse the love and care of others. After the time it takes for 3 incense sticks to burn, Qi Shi'er finally walked out. She had just taken a bath, so her skin was red and her hair was still wet. She wore a pure white dress, making her look holy and charming. She was exceptionally moving. Qi Shi'er was shy like a young girl. She sat down next to Lu Li and said shyly, "Brother, okay." Lu Li smiled and said, "Take a rest here. I don't think you will have much time to rest. Have a good sleep." "Okay," Qi Shi'er nodded. Then, she leaned on Lu Li's shoulder and closed her eyes. Luli put his arm around Qi Shi'er's shoulder. Smelling the faint fragrance from Qi Shi'er, Luli felt at peace. He looked up to the sky. It was dusk. The sky was dyed red. It was beautiful. Soon, Qi Shi'er fell asleep. Luli put her down and let her lie on the grass. With her head in his lap, it would be more comfortable to fall asleep. It was getting dark. Luli, Qi Shi'er, and Little White were swallowed up by the darkness. There was no light tonight. It was pitch black. Dark clouds gathered overhead as if it would rain at any time. Luli didn't cultivate or sleep. He just sat quietly, thinking about his future and the possibilities. The more he thought, the more tired he felt. Even if he could become a supreme warrior in the divinity, it would be difficult for him to kill his way back to the divinity. The 9 immortals were more powerful than average supreme warriors in the divinity. Why didn't the 9 immortals lead an army to the divinity? Clearly, it was because the 4 legendary forces were too powerful. Luli had fought against Craftsman's sect, one of the 4 legendary forces in the divinity, but Craftsman's sect had only revealed the tip of the iceberg. Once Craftsman's sect revealed their full strength, they would be like a mountain that could not be crossed, resisted, or resisted. Fighting alone was lonely and tiring, not to mention fighting against the entire divinity, which was harder than climbing up to heaven. From the depth of Luli's soul came a sense of tiredness. He sat for a whole night. It was dawn in the east. A ray of light tore through the darkness, lighting up Luli's eyes. At that moment, Qi Shi'er woke up as well. She yawned and sat up. Then, she put on a beautiful smile. Luli's tiredness was gone when he saw the light of dawn and Qi Shi'er's beautiful smile. Chapter 1497. After they woke up, they moved on. This time, in 2 hours, they encountered an inhibition formation that could be seen from the distance. 30 miles away, there was a river. It was not water, but sand. The sand was flowing slowly. One look, and Luli could sense danger. However, there was no end to the river. It was like a moat blocking their way. Should we go around? Luli raised his eyebrows and asked. The deaf Taoist shook his head with a bitter smile. We cannot go around it. The Quicksand River is famous at the ancient demon's burial ground. There is no way around the Quicksand River. We have to destroy it or force our way through. Really? Luli looked at the wriggling river in the distance with interest. Is the Quicksand River dangerous? He asked. Of course. The deaf Taoist nodded. I think the river can swallow warriors. It is said that the average immortals can only turn around in the Quicksand River. They cannot go through. If they force their way through, they will be swallowed up by the Quicksand River and be trapped there for the rest of their lives. Sometimes they might even die. Oh, I see. Luli did not take it to heart. He waved his hand and led the way. The closer they were to the Quicksand River, the more they could feel the strangeness of the river. This river was at least 100 miles wide, and it was filled with quicksand. The quicksand was slowly wriggling as if it was a flowing river. Standing outside the Quicksand River, Luli calmed himself down and used psychic power to check. Qi Shi'er's eyes glowed as she observed. She would exclaim every now and then. She was amazed. Little White stood on Luli's shoulder, eager to try. The deaf Taoist gazed at the Quicksand River with a solemn expression. For many average immortals, the Quicksand River was a nightmare. Many immortals that entered the ancient demon's burial ground would be trapped in the Quicksand River. Some would be trapped for hundreds of years, and some for tens of thousands of years. When they came out, they would lose their minds. They would tell everyone they met about the horrors of the Quicksand River. The Quicksand River can isolate psychic power. Luli stopped using psychic power soon. Psychic power could only reach up to 1,000 feet. He could not go any further. Luli couldn't find anything other than sand. Buzzing, Luli let out the immortal's body, which glowed. The Bloodvine's tentacle pierced into the ground and extended toward the Quicksand River. Blood Fairy was the most suitable existence for probing restrictions. Her tentacles were illusory and could pierce through anything. Luli waited patiently for Blood Fairy to finish her work. He told Qi Shi'er and the deaf Taoist to rest while he stood by the river and observe the flow of the sand. After searching for half a day, Blood Fairy did not respond. Instead, 3 people approached from afar, and they were of a different race. A glint of coldness rose in Lu Li's eyes when he saw them. They were 3 freaks that looked like humans, but Lu Li could tell that they were monsters. The 3 of them were very tall. They were more than 2 meters tall and had a stocky build. Their arms and faces were covered in black fur. Their heads were very big, and their eyes were round and filled with a vicious light. They stared at Qi Shi as if they wanted to eat her alive. Brother, Qi Shi was scared. She rushed over and stood behind Lu Li. Little White came back and bared its teeth at the 3 monsters. Buzzing, Lu Li took out the wicked bead and let Qi Shi, Little White, and the deaf Taoist in. It was said that monsters had special abilities. Lu Li could not afford to be careless. He decided to kill the 3 monsters with all he had. When the 3 monsters were looking at Qi Shi, Lu Li had already sentenced them to death. Qi Shi was Lu Li's sore spot. He would kill anyone that dared to offend her. Yu Linglong was the best example. Human punk. The 3 looked similar. The one in the middle, who was taller, said, "Give that girl to us, and we will spare your life. Or else, we will make sure you die without a burial place." "Yes, yes." The one on the left nodded. "Punk, if you don't give her to us, we will throw you into the quicksand river and trap you there for the rest of your life." "Ha ha." The third one stared at Lu Li with evil eyes, which made Lu Li's hair stand on end. The third one said coldly, "How about you play with me, and I will spare your life?" "Ha ha." Lu Li laughed out of anger. He took out the demon slayer and said, "You 3 bastards with no intelligence. When you go to hell, don't forget to tell the king of hell that the one who killed you is Lu Li." Buzzing, Lu Li did not hesitate. He used spatial force at once. The 3 monsters felt they were being crushed by mountains. They could not move at all. They were taken aback. Roar, roar, the 3 of them bellowed at the same time. They grew to a height of more than 1,000 feet, like giants reaching the sky. Each of their legs was 10 feet thick. The 3 seemed to be apes. Their bodies were covered in black fur. The fangs in their mouths were as horrifying as those of zombies. Their eyes were blood red. Roar, roar. Even though they had transformed, they were still suppressed by the force in heaven and earth. It was difficult for them to move. The 3 demon clans could only let out a series of angry roars that caused ripples to appear in the space around them. Lu Li's eardrums were hurting. At the same time, he felt some strange energy appeared in his soul. This roar actually contained a soul attack, and a very powerful one at that. The last thing Lu Li was afraid of was soul attacks. The dragon soul would consume the energy quickly. Lu Li wanted to attack right away, but he decided to stay where he was. The dragon soul seemed to be able to turn the energy it consumed into a strange energy that could help him improve his divine energy and body. Roar, roar, the 3 monsters kept bellowing. Seeing that Lu Li was not moving, they thought he was frightened by the soul attack. They were excited and wanted to kill Lu Li with soul attacks. However, after the time for 2 incense sticks to burn, the 3 monsters realized something was wrong. They had been bellowing for a long time. Lu Li was not affected at all. Instead, he seemed to be enjoying it. What is going on? The 3 demons were a little puzzled. The 3 of them could not move at all. Should they continue roaring or stop? They realized that this was very awkward and sullen. Either Lu Li would kill them right away, or let them go so that they could put up a desperate fight. "Why did you stop?" Lu Li noticed that the 3 monsters had stopped. He opened his eyes and said with killing intent, "Roar. Keep it up, or I will kill you right now." Roar, roar, the 3 monsters continued to bellow and rage. Judging by Lu Li's tone, he would not let them go if they kept on bellowing. Of course, apart from yelling, there was nothing else they could do. Just like that, the 3 demons roared nonstop. After roaring for half a day, the 3 demons became extremely dispirited. After all, they were not just bellowing. They were using soul attacks. Lu Li opened his eyes at that moment. The 3 monsters were cheered up. One of them said, "Lord, we have been bellowing for a day. Can you let us go now? It is not your naivety that has defeated you, but your innocence." Chapter 1498. As a matter of fact, the three of them had some special skills. Unfortunately, they did not have the chance to use them because they were suppressed by the force in heaven and earth. When Luli controlled the space distortion, he noticed that their physical defense was strong. The twisting force stopped for the time for one breath before the three were killed. Sure, the bad guys are dead. Go and cultivate for a while. I will go to the quicksand river first, Luli said. Then, he went down the quicksand river with the immortal's body. The three of them had been shouting for a whole day. Who could tell if they had alerted the powerful warriors? It was better to be careful. While walking, Luli tried to sense the surroundings. All of a sudden, he noticed that someone was tailing him, hiding in the sand. This was another one of the demon race with strong stealth skills. If it were not for the fact that Luli was sensitive to space, he would not have noticed it. This demon race was almost a shadow. It moved underground without making any noise. Not even the sand and stones trembled. Piss off! Luli used psychic power to check on this demon race. He shouted. The demon race ran away like a frightened rabbit. He had seen how Luli killed the three demons. Now that Luli had noticed him, the demon race would not dare to follow him anymore. Thousands of miles later, the quicksand river was still there. Luli told Blood Fairy to keep searching while he tried to sense the situation in the quicksand river. Master, 2 hours later, Blood Fairy said, this is a natural divine formation. It doesn't have any restrictive spells or formation patterns, but is not powerful. I think it can only trap people, not kill them. Luli nodded. You are right. When the sand is flowing, it is following a special pattern to form a miraculous formation. If someone wants to go in from the sky, they will be sucked into the sand. If I am right, once someone is sucked into the sand, the formation in the sand will change into a strong trapping formation that uses the force of the earth to trap the warrior. Blood Fairy replied telepathically. My conjecture is similar to my master's. There are only 2 ways to cross this river. The first is to resist the strong suction force. The second is to sneak under the sand. But to do that, you must break the trapping formation in the sand. I'll give it a try. Luli took out a silver whip and said to Blood Fairy, if the immortal's body is sucked in, find a way to crack the formation. I will figure out a way to get you out. All right. Blood Fairy did not hesitate. To her, Luli's order was like an imperial edict. Moreover, this quicksand river was not very terrifying. Blood Fairy was confident that she could break through the formation after spending some time. Luli entangled the immortal's body with a whip. The latter slowly walked toward the quicksand river. When the immortal's body stepped on the quicksand river, the river began to move. A powerful suction force appeared and pulled the god's corpse downward. Suppress. Luli mobilized the force of heaven and earth at once to suppress the squirming sand. Under the pressure, the sand stopped moving. Luli pulled forcefully, and the immortal's body was pulled up. And Luli nodded. Just as I expected. The suction force of the quicksand river is horrifying, but the sand can stop it. I think I can go through. Luli was not sure about this. What if he was walking on the sand and the force of space could no longer stop him? He would be sucked in. Whatever. Luli decided not to overthink. Even if he was trapped, it would only take him some time to crack the formation. Let's go. Luli was a resolute man. He put away the immortal's body and waved his hand. An invisible force of space pressed down. The sand stopped moving. Luli kicked the ground with one leg and floated down. It's okay. Luli felt the sand under his feet sank a bit, but there was no suction force. He was relieved and stepped forward. 100 feet, 1,000 feet. Luli sped up. He kept controlling the force of space to suppress the sand in an area with a radius of 3 miles. If the sand was not squirming, the formation would not move and there would be no suction force. Luli was fast. The quicksand river was 30 miles wide, but in the time for a dozen breaths, he had covered more than half of the distance. Looking at the riverbank in the distance, Luli thought to himself, is this all the famous quicksand river is? There was a saying that extreme joy begets sorrow. Soon, Luli felt it. He moved forward for another 3 miles, and was only 3 miles away from the riverbank. In the time for a few breaths, he would be able to cross the river. Right at that moment, the sand in the river began to tremble. Then two skeletal hands reached out from the sand, grabbed Lu Li's legs, and pulled him down forcefully. What is that? Lu Li did not feel the movement of the sand. The appearance of the two skeletal hands was so strange that he was taken aback. But his years of fighting experience and his instinct from living on the line between life and death had saved him. If it were someone else, his first reaction would be to cut the hands down with his weapon and take the chance to run away. Lu Li didn't do that. The demon slayer in his hand glowed coldly. A gust of cold air whooshed down, slowing down the pulling speed of the skeletal hands. At the same time, Lu Li waved his other hand and mobilized the force of space again. When the skeletal hand stopped moving, he used the demon-slaughtering blade and slashed at the skeletal hand. Bang! Sparks flew. The skeletal hands didn't break. Instead, there came a muffled sound of metal clashing as if Lu Li was hacking at cold iron. What is this? Lu Li was surprised. If these were puppets, then who was controlling the skeletal hands to attack him? If they were not puppets, why would the skeletal hands attack him? Lu Li could not figure it out, and he had no time to think. He swung the demon slayer for more than a dozen times and finally got rid of the skeletal hands with the counterforce. Then he flew up. Moo! Lu Li could not control the situation around him, which messed up the force of space. The skeletal hands reached out again. The two fingers were half a meter long. Lu Li wondered what kind of skeleton it was. Swish, swish, Lu Li swung his saber. A gust of cold air spread out from the saber, which slowed down the skeletal hands again. He dashed toward the riverbank like a sharp sword. Bang! Along the way, huge skeletal hands reached out from the quicksand below, grabbing at him with lightning speed. Luckily, Lu Li was prepared. Every time, he could release cold air in time to slow down the skeletal hands. Whoosh! Finally, he reached the riverbank. Lu Li breathed in relief. He turned around and saw that the skeletal hands were gone. However, at that moment, the sand in the middle of the riverbank suddenly surged. Then a huge skull came out. The eyes of the skull glowed in blue. It looked at Lu Li from the distance and then sank into the sand. Hiss, hiss. Chapter 1499. A powerful skeleton was hiding in the quicksand river. The skeleton seemed to have intelligence. If it were not for the fact that Lu Li had seen it himself, he would not have believed it. Lu Li had a skeleton himself. Usually, it was just a puppet or a human corpse or a beast corpse that had been refined using some secret skill. How could something like that have intelligence? The reason why Lu Li felt that the skeleton was sentient was because when he looked into its eyes, Lu Li could see human emotions in its eyes. The look was telling Lu Li that the skeleton had spared Lu Li's life on purpose. Blood Fairy's tentacles were long. She had been searching for a long distance, but she did not find anything. It was such a large skeleton, but Blood Fairy did not sense anything. Also, there seemed to be many skeleton hands. Were there many skeletons? Lu Li shuddered at the thought that many powerful skeletons were hiding in the quicksand river. He was too careless. Fortunately, he was lucky. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. What secrets were hidden in the quicksand river? Did that skeleton have intelligence or not? If so, why did the skeleton spare Lu Li's life? Many questions popped up in Lu Li's mind. He shook his head after a while and left. Since he could not figure it out, and he could not go down to the quicksand river to check, it was pointless to pursue the matter. He would just have to be careful when he came across the quicksand river. Continuing forward, there was still a boundless desert in front of them. It was not as hot here, but the wind was much stronger. Yellow sand danced in the air, and visibility was much lower. Lu Li let out the immortal's body and the deaf Taoist, but he did not let Qi Shi'er and Little White out. He did not want the wicked bead to be suppressed when they suddenly went into a certain place and could not take them in. Master, we should have passed the outer area. The deaf Taoist reminded Lu Li. His meaning was clear. Here, the danger level would increase, and there would be more inhibition formations. Of course, There might be treasures and lands of treasure. It all depended on luck. Luli nodded. He kept checking with psychic power. He held the demon slayer in one hand and hid 2 Wrath of Thunder in his other sleeve. Previously, there were some situations where interspatial rings could not be used. Luli had to be on guard. After walking for 2 hours, the terrain in front of them changed. It was no longer a boundless desert, but a Gobi desert. Looking into the distance, Luli saw many towering stone peaks. Something is wrong with those stone peaks. Luli did not even have to look. Based on his years of study on inhibition formations, he could tell that there was something wrong with the stone peaks. Either there were formations of illusion, or formations of confusion, or formations of destruction. Luli looked to his left and right and saw that there were only stone peaks at the end of his line of sight. He was too lazy to continue searching. He had to go through those stone peaks if he wanted to go. Luli was not afraid of inhibition formations. Instead, he was looking forward to it. He already had a deep understanding of spirit arrays. Being able to see more spirit arrays was a good learning opportunity for him. These formations were all ancient god forbidden formations. Many of them had already been lost to time. When Luli arrived at the stone peaks, he realized that these stone peaks were very strange. They were of all shapes and sizes. Some looked like trees, some looked like giants, and some looked like beasts. All the stone peaks were modeled, a record of the passage of time. Luli did not go in rashly. He stayed outside the stone peaks to observe. Blood Fairy reached out her tentacles and reached into the ground. An hour later, Blood Fairy said, "Master, there are formations under the stone peaks, very complicated ones." Really? Luli was curious, and he relaxed a lot. As long as there were runes, Blood Fairy wouldn't feel any pressure. Her tentacles could merge with the runes and change the runes, which would allow her to easily break through the formation. Luli asked with curiosity, "What are the formations in the stone peaks? Are they formations of destruction?" "There are all kinds of formations," Blood Fairy said after a moment of silence. "The formations here are miraculous. They contain powerful energy. I think the more powerful one is, the stronger the backlash will be. I found a huge pond in the center of the formation. It contains endless energy. I think not even supreme warriors in the divinity can stand it." "What?" Luli was taken aback. Blood Fairy never lied. Her senses should not be wrong. The formation in the stone forest must be strong. It could absorb energy and accumulate on its own. Once a powerful warrior dashed in and tried to crack the formation by force, he or she might be killed by the formation. "Master, don't worry," Blood Fairy said after a while. "Master, on the surface, you are only as strong as a mighty warrior in the divinity. The backlash will be weak. Also, give me some time. I will modify the formations, and you can go through easily." Okay. Luli used psychic power to check underground. However, he was blocked by a layer of energy shield. He had to wait quietly. Luli chatted with the Deaf Taoist and told him about the stone forest. This should be the stone forest of destruction. The Deaf Taoist explained, "It is said that this is a horrifying place in the ancient demon's burial ground. If you know about formations, you could go through easily. If you don't, it will be difficult to go through by force. If you try to break the formation by force, you will die quickly. It is said that even supreme warriors in the divinity can be killed here." "What?" Luli was surprised. He asked with curiosity, "Deaf Taoist, how come you are so familiar with the ancient demon's burial ground?" "Because many of my family members have been here." The Deaf Taoist explained, "My great-grandpa used to be an overlord in the region of Doom. He came here in search of a breakthrough and never came out again. My grandfather brought a group of experts here to look for my grandfather. In the end, after more than 1,000 years, only my father came out. My father told me a lot about this place, and even gave me 2 books about the situation in the ancient demon's graveyard." "Master, I am guilty." The Deaf Taoist dropped to one knee and said with shame, "I told you that I came to the ancient demon's burial ground out of selfishness. I want to see if I can find the remains of my great-grandpa and grandpa. My father will be happy when I bring them back to the region of Doom. Given my abilities, I will die for sure. Master, you are skilled in inhibition formations. So, what? Luli pulled a long face. He was filled with killing intent. He kicked at the deaf Taoist's head. How strong was Luli? His physical body was hundreds of times stronger than before. In a fit of rage, the deaf Taoist's face was covered in blood. The deaf Taoist rolled away. Master, please calm down. Luli had lost his temper. The deaf Taoist was terrified. He did not mean to harm Luli, but he didn't want to borrow Luli's strength. Luli stopped after the kick, staring at the deaf Taoist who was kowtowing on the ground. Luli said coldly, "From now on, you must report to me truthfully. If there's a next time, I will send you to your great-grandpa." Chapter 1500. Luli had always been kind to his subordinates, including his soul slaves. Luli believed that he had been kind to the deaf Taoist. He had offered to let the deaf Taoist go many times and even gave him many materials for cultivation. But the deaf Taoist was using him. What Luli hated the most was being threatened, betrayed, and lied to. Even though the deaf Taoist was not completely betraying him by using him, Luli was still angry. Fortunately, when the deaf Taoist reported to the ancient demon's dead ground, he did not instigate Luli. Instead, he told Luli about the situation objectively. What the deaf Taoist said was basically true. Otherwise, Luli would not show any mercy and would have killed the deaf Taoist. The deaf Taoist was frightened. For years, this was the first time that Luli had lost his temper. He was like a furious beast king. This reminded the deaf Taoist of the purgatory of primordial chaos. Back then, Luli was just as horrifying as he was right now. Master, please calm down. I was wrong. The deaf Taoist kept kowtowing. Luli did not look at him. He turned to the forest of stones. The deaf Taoist did not say another word. He knelt on the ground. Since Luli did not say anything, the deaf Taoist had to stay on his knees. He knelt for 2 hours. Finally, Blood Fairy responded. She said to Luli, "Okay, Master, I think I have figured it out. If everything goes well, I can promise you that you can go through the forest of stones easily." "Okay." Luli nodded. He glanced at the deaf Taoist and said, "Do you want to kneel here for the rest of your life?" With that said, Luli strode forward. The deaf Taoist kowtowed 3 times in joy and followed Luli. 2 people and 1 dead body entered the forest of stones. Buzzing, as the 2 people and the dead body entered the forest of stones, the peaks outside gave out a dim glow. Then, the 2 people and the dead body vanished into the forest of stones. From the outside, it was impossible to see them. 6 hours after Luli entered the forest of stones, a flying bird whooshed over from outside the ancient demon's dead ground. The flying bird vanished from the ancient demon's dead ground, and Yu Qingtian came down. It was not because Yu Qingtian's flying bird was fast, nor was it because he was close to the ancient demon's dead ground. It was because Yu Qingtian was in a hurry to find another monster. He traveled through space and time and arrived in a couple of days. He was familiar with the ancient demon's dead land. The deeper they went, the more complicated the terrain became. It would be harder to find Luli and the others. Moreover, there were many places that he did not dare to enter. Or rather, he could not enter. Hence, he spent a lot of divine roots to ask the demon race for help. Divine sources meant nothing to Yu Qingtian. Nothing was more important to him than killing Luli. As long as he could kill Luli, he would be willing to give up his only holy grade relic weapon, let alone some divine sources. In the future, he could think of ways to buy a saint-level divine weapon. He could think of ways to snatch it away. If he lost his face, how could he continue to live in the land of Yuyan? After he arrived, he did not immediately walk into the death zone. Instead, he took out a wooden token and crushed it. He waited quietly at his original spot. Half an hour later, a figure floated over from afar. That person's body was translucent, and he had a typical aquiline nose. He was a member of the Wandering Falcon tribe. "Greetings, Mansion Master Yu." Warriors of the Wandering Falcon race dropped to one knee. Yu Qingtian waved his hand and asked, "Where is Luli now? Have you found him?" "I don't know. The answer from the peregrine falcon race disappointed Yu Qingtian. The peregrine falcon reported after a pause, but half a day ago, someone tracked Luli to the quicksand river. Luli has noticed the man behind him. He doesn't dare to keep chasing. Now, Luli must have crossed the quicksand river, or he is still in front of it. Quicksand river? Yu Qingtian's eyes glowed. He knew about the quicksand river. This place was a bit far away from the quicksand river, but not too far. If he went after Luli at full speed, and Luli hadn't crossed the quicksand river, there was a good chance that he could catch up with Luli. This part of the quicksand river. The peregrine falcon race warrior took out a map and circled it. A glint of coldness flashed in Yu Qingtian's eyes. He took out an interspatial ring and threw it to the peregrine falcon race warrior. He grabbed the map and flew away. Thank you. Mansion Master you. The peregrine falcon race warrior used psychic power to check and found 100 million divine sources in the ring. He was overjoyed and thanked Yu Qingtian. Yu Qingtian had flown to the distance. He sent back a message. Keep searching around for me. If you can find Lu Li's exact location, I will give you 5 billion divine sources. Okay. The peregrine falcon race warrior was overjoyed. He flew to the distance, ready to gather his people to make arrangements. Yu Qingtian was so generous. They would be happy to do this even without the family patriarch's order. Yu Qingtian would remember this favor if they could find Lu Li for him. Lu Li, right? While running, the peregrine falcon race warrior sneered and murmured, "Why didn't you leave? Why did you come to the ancient demon deadland? Is this a place where a warrior of your level can come? A supreme warrior from the divinity is hunting you down. Even if you are extremely lucky, you will not escape death." Lu Li was in the stone forest. He did not know that Yu Qingtian was here. Blood Fairy was almost certain that she could crack the stone forest. Therefore, Lu Li was at ease when he came in. He looked around. He was not in a hurry. Instead, he observed and learned the inhibition formations here. Lu Li did not find anything special in the stone forest, nor did he sense any danger. The only thing he felt was that this place was like a maze. He almost lost his way as soon as he came in. It was easy to understand that there was a maze in the stone forest. Lu Li did not care about the maze. What he cared about was the formation of destruction. He wanted to see how the formation of destruction was set up. After walking around for 2 hours, he had a rough idea. The stone peaks here were of various shapes. Some were like humans, some were like trees, and some were like beasts. There were inhibition formations in the stone peaks. Attacking them by force would cause the formation to backfire. The formation could sense automatically. The more powerful the warrior was, the more powerful the formation would be, and the more powerful the backfire would be. Lu Li and the deaf Taoist walked quietly. They did not touch any of the stone peaks. Therefore, the formation of destruction was not activated. Wait! After Lu Li wandered around for another 2 hours, he found some clues. He realized that the stone peaks were set up in a strange angle. Once they were activated, everything would be activated. Attacking any stone peak would be attacking all of them, and all of them would come to life. In other words, the stone peaks were not stone peaks, but puppets. Powerful puppets. Once the entire formation was triggered, all the puppets would come to life. The puppets were a single entity. Any one of them could mobilize the strength of all the other puppets and the horrifying energy stored in the pond. Impressive, impressive. The more Lu Li thought about it, the more shocked he was. The ancient inhibition formations were indeed mysterious. They were much more powerful than the formations built by Tianlingzi and the others. They were even more powerful than the inhibition formations built by Master Ghost. That was to say, in the ancient times, the Fey King was more capable than a master craftsman when it came to inhibition formations. It had reached an unimaginable level. Chapter 1501. It was understandable that Blood Fairy would have such an idea. Bloodvine was born with the ability to crack inhibition formations. She loved inhibition formations from the bottom of her heart. To Blood Fairy, this place was a holy land. She would not want to miss the chance to learn and become stronger. Lu Li was hesitating. There was nothing here, and the Xian energy in heaven and earth was not rich. It would be pointless for him to cultivate here. More importantly, this was not the central area of the ancient demon's burial ground, but the periphery. If Yu Qing Tian came, Luli could easily kill him. That being said, if Blood Fairy could become stronger in inhibition formations, Luli could improve in this aspect as well. Luli thought about it and said, "How about you stay here and study while I go on my own? Let's see if there's a good place to cultivate." "Sure." Blood Fairy said, "Master, you can build a one-way teleportation formation here. If you run into any danger, you can teleport back immediately. You should be able to build such a teleportation formation, right? Also, I can sense your general location through the teleportation formation. I can go and find you." "That's easy." Luli nodded. Tian Lingzi had such a teleportation formation. A one-way teleportation formation here could be connected to a jade talisman. When he crushed the jade talisman, a door would appear in midair. If the distance was not too far, he could be teleported here directly. Since the jade talisman was connected to the teleportation formation, Blood Fairy could sense the existence of the jade talisman through the teleportation formation and trace Luli's whereabouts. Buzzing, Luli took out the formation stones and found a random place to build the teleportation formation. However, since it was his first time, he was not familiar with it. He spent 2 hours and made a mistake. "Master, don't destroy it." Seeing that Luli was about to destroy the teleportation formation, Blood Fairy said at once, "I will change the formation patterns. Don't waste the formation stones. Build a stealth formation." Okay. Luli began to build inhibition formations outside the teleportation formation. After a while, the teleportation formation glowed, and so did a special jade talisman in Luli's hand. He could tell that the one-way teleportation formation was built successfully. He continued to get busy. After half an hour, the ground of the teleportation array flashed, and the teleportation array disappeared from the ground. From the outside, not even psychic power could see it. Only warriors with strong souls could see it. "Master, take the Immortal's corpse with you." The Immortal's corpse's defense is very strong. It can be used at critical moments. There was a flash of light under the Immortal's body, and the blood vine came out of the Immortal's body and burrowed into the ground. Blood Fairy's voice was heard. "I'll stay here for 2 months at most. If Master doesn't come back in 2 months, I'll go find you." "All right." Luli nodded. Now that Blood Fairy was a spiritual body, she could travel underground. If she really wanted to find Luli, she could be fast. Average inhibition formations could not stop her. "Let's go." Luli put away the Immortal's body. He waved his hand and walked away with the Deaf Taoist. He said in his mind, "Blood Fairy, guide me out of the stone forest." The formations here were too complicated. Luli would need several years before he could even grasp the slightest bit of it. It was too unsafe here, so Luli didn't dare to stay any longer. "Master, sense my location. I will lead the way," Blood Fairy said. She had a spiritual connection with Luli. They could sense each other from a short distance. Luli followed Blood Fairy's footsteps. In an hour, he was out of the stone forest. "Master, be careful. Teleport back if something goes wrong," Blood Fairy said. Luli nodded. Like an earth dragon, Blood Fairy swam into the underground to study the complicated patterns in the stone forest and to learn how to become stronger. Luli and the Deaf Taoist moved forward quickly. Without Blood Fairy by his side, Luli felt stressed. After all, Blood Fairy had an amazing ability to crack formations. Luli was good at inhibition formations, but he did not have Blood Fairy's talent. Up ahead was still the Gobi Desert. There were some stone peaks, but they were large. There was no stone forest. Luli and the Deaf Taoist moved forward quickly. When they were close to the stone peaks, Luli would check from a distance. If there was any sign of inhibition formations, Luli would take a detour. Along the way, Luli did not rest for 2 hours. He had been walking for 2 days without encountering any powerful inhibition formations. Of course, this was because Luli had a profound knowledge of inhibition formations. Most of the time, he could sense invisible inhibition formations and would take a detour in advance. Those who did not know inhibition formations would have broken in. Today, Luli encountered the most powerful warrior in the ancient demon's dead ground, a warrior with a blood aura and a powerful Asmodean. This Asmodean did not take the shape of a human. He was in his original form, sitting on a mountain in the distance. The Asmodean was covered in black scales, and there were blade-like spikes on his back. Even though he was sitting, the Asmodean was hundreds of feet tall, like a towering mountain or an invincible Asmodean. The Asmodean had a pair of blood-red eyes that were filled with violence. His energy was horrifying. Even from 30 miles away, Lu Li and the others could feel the overwhelming energy. Asmodean. The red glow in the deaf Taoist's eyes flickered involuntarily. Looking at the towering figure in the distance, the deaf Taoist explained, "Master, the Asmodean could be compared to a super mighty warrior in the divinity. His physical strength is the most horrifying. I don't think he can be killed unless he is as strong as a supreme warrior in the divinity." Luli sensed the danger as well. He stopped early and asked in a low voice, "Can we still go back?" "No." The deaf Taoist forced a smile. When we sense his energy, he had already noticed us. If we run away, we will anger him. The only way is for me to go and pay him a visit and see if he can let us go. Sure. Luli was not nervous. The space here was not frozen. If something went wrong, he could fly away, or he could activate the teleportation formation to go back to the stone forest. The deaf Taoist said that this Asmodean was horrifying. That being said, Luli did not believe that the Asmodean could survive the Wrath of Thunder. Even if the Asmodean could survive, Luli could use spatial force and space twist. By then, even if the Asmodean could survive, he would be severely injured. Luli didn't want to start a fight if he could avoid it. Luli restrained his energy and put on a respectful look as he followed the deaf Taoist. When they were 3 miles away from the Asmodean, Luli stopped. The deaf Taoist walked forward by himself. At the same time, the deaf Taoist bellowed and transformed back to his original form. He walked forward in strides. When he was 3 miles away from the Asmodean, the deaf Taoist dropped to one knee and yelled. The deaf Taoist must be speaking the language of beasts, but Luli could not understand him. Luli stared at the Asmodean sitting on the peak, trying to see how the Asmodean would react. Whoosh! Chapter 1502. Luli did not know what the deaf Taoist and the Asmodean were talking about, but he did know that he was in deep trouble. The deaf Taoist could be crushed to death. The deaf Taoist had been with Luli for years and had grown stronger. He should be as powerful as an immortal on the list. However, in front of this powerful Asmodean, the deaf Taoist was like a helpless child who was subdued. Luli took out a Wrath of Thunder. He did not have many left, but he was prepared to use one for the sake of the deaf Taoist. The deaf Taoist had been with Luli for years. He did not make any contributions, but he did put in a lot of effort. Even though the deaf Taoist had done something wrong, Luli had punished him. Naturally, Luli would not stand by and do nothing. "Stop!" Luli shouted. The Wrath of Thunder in his hand glowed. Luli held it up, stared into the Asmodean's eyes, and said, "If you dare to kill him, I will make you regret it." The powerful Asmodean seemed to have sensed the danger from the Wrath of Thunder in Luli's hand. The powerful Asmodean looked over. He opened his mouth and said in a hoarse and muffled voice, "How dare a puny human threaten me?" Luli could have used interspatial force, but he was afraid that he could not control the Asmodean. If the deaf Taoist was enraged, he would die for sure. The Asmodean did not make a move. Luli thought of an idea. He stared at the Asmodean fearlessly and said, "Threaten you? I'm going to kill you. If you're not convinced, then let him go. Let's fight." Boom! The Asmodean answered Li's words with actions. He waved his hand, and the deaf Taoist was smashed away like a sack. The Asmodean dashed over and reached for Li with his hand. The Asmodean was not afraid of the Wrath of Thunder in Li's hand. Suppress. Li waved his hands and used the strongest interspatial force. He gathered the spatial force in an area with a radius of 3 miles and limited it to a radius of 1 mile. What? The Asmodean slowed down by dozens of times. He felt a mountain was pressing down on him. His muscles were wriggling, and his hand was still reaching for Luli. Chilly air of glass dragon. Luli hacked at the Asmodean with the demon slayer. A surge of chilly air spread out. The Asmodean was slowed down. While moving back, Luli slapped twice with his other hand. He had used the space strangulation move. Originally, Luli's space strangulation was not particularly powerful, but after he studied it in the Hall of Ghost King, its power had been enhanced. That was why he was able to kill the Immortal Realm's super powerhouses on Mount Xing. However, as the space twist was released, the space around the powerful Asmodean began to twist. Luli was taken aback. That was because even though space was distorting, not only was the body of the demon race powerhouse not torn apart, but even his skin was not torn apart. There was only a trace of pain on the demon's face, nothing more. Roar! All of a sudden, the powerful Asmodean bellowed. His voice was even more horrifying than Luli's dragon roar. Even space was trembling. Next, the demon expert's body shone with a black light, and his muscles swelled up, turning him into a muscular monster. Master, retreat quickly. This is the descendant of the Demon King. His physical body is extremely terrifying. You can't kill him. The deaf Taoist shouted from the distance. Luli noticed that the force of space that the deaf Taoist mobilized was disturbed and the suppression was gone. This, because of the disappearance of the suppression, the huge hand was coming at Luli. Even though Luli wanted to step back, he could only move so fast. He made up his mind to use a Wrath of Thunder and threw it forward. Swish, swish, the Wrath of Thunder exploded. The horrifying thunderbolts swept across an area with a radius of several miles. The deaf Taoist was smart. Seeing that the Wrath of Thunder was glowing, the deaf Taoist was scared out of his wits and ran away. Roar! The huge hand reached toward Luli. The Wrath of Thunder exploded right next to the hand. The thunderbolts engulfed the powerful Asmodean. The powerful Asmodean trembled as if he was having a seizure. Black smoke rose from his body, and he seemed to be in pain. Move! Once again, Luli did not hesitate. The powerful Asmodean's physical body was strong. The Wrath of Thunder could not kill him. Luli stepped back and ran toward the deaf Taoist. Roar, roar, the powerful Asmodean kept bellowing, shaking heaven and earth. He wanted to go after Luli. However, he was surrounded by thunderbolts and burned. How could he go after Luli? Luli sped up. When he caught up with the deaf Taoist, Luli grabbed him and ran. They ran for 30 miles in one go. Luli could still hear the roars of the giant Asmodean. Luli did not dare to stop. He changed his direction and ran on for another dozens of miles. Behind him, he heard angry bellows. That powerful Asmodean was coming after them. As a matter of fact, Luli could fly away in the void, but he didn't think it was necessary, and he did not dare to do so. Many places here were horrifying, and there were many powerful inhibition formations. If he were to be pulled out by the inhibition formations when he was flying and ended up in some perilous place, he would not even know how he died. Mirror image profound meaning. Luli remembered a profound meaning he learned when he was in the lower world. He took out the Wrath of Thunder and used it to make it glow. Go! He controlled dozens of clones to dash to the left, right, and back with the Wrath of Thunder. Luli himself dashed to the left and put the deaf Taoist into the wicked bead. The powerful Asmodean stopped in his tracks when he saw the more than 30 Luli coming at him with the Wrath of Thunder. But his soul was strong enough. He used psychic power to check and found that the Asmodean was fake. Bastard, I want you dead. The powerful Asmodean was enraged. He felt humiliated. Smoke was rising from his body. He had been wounded by the Wrath of Thunder. The Asmodean's body was strong. Usually, he would not be hurt. He could not accept that he was hurt by a puny human. The Asmodean ran on in strides. His energy spread out as he tried to locate Luli. Soon, the Asmodean located Luli and sped up. He was no slower than the super mighty warriors in the divinity. **T. Luli could feel the muffled footsteps getting closer. That violent and horrifying energy had locked onto him. Luli complained to himself. He took out a jade talisman. If push came to shove, he would have to teleport back to the stone forest. He had more Wrath of Thunder, but it would be a waste to use it like this. He had to save his life. He was confident that he could make the Wrath of Thunder. That being said, the materials required would be exorbitant. He could not consume the Wrath of Thunder at the moment. What? Suddenly, thick fog appeared at the end of his sight. Faintly, Luli saw some mountains piercing through the clouds. Luli could tell that there must be a powerful formation of illusion in the fog. Okay, Luli had learned something. Again, he generated clones. Dozens of Luli carried the glowing Wrath of Thunder and dashed back while Luli himself dashed into the fog. The powerful Asmodean stopped. He was afraid. He was not afraid of Luli's clones. He was looking at the fog and the looming mountains in the distance. That was what he was afraid of. After Luli rushed into the mist, the powerful Asmodean grinned. He said with a cold grin, "This human bastard is so audacious. Not even I have the courage to go to the misty soul mountain, and he dares to go in? Wait for your doom." Chapter 1503. The powerful Asmodean did not go after Luli. He left, shaking his head. As far as the Asmodean was concerned, Luli entering the misty soul mountain was as good as dead. Why would the Asmodean care about a dead man? Not even the Asmodean dared to go into the misty soul mountain. Not only him, many powerful Asmodeans did not have the courage to go in. Throughout history, some powerful Asmodeans that went in never came back out. The mist is so thick. As soon as Luli came in, he found himself shrouded in mist. The mist here was much thicker than in the Ghost King ancient area. He could see less than 30 feet away, and he could not use psychic power at all. The mist here was different from regular ones. It seemed to be white, but at a closer look, there was a beige color. The mist was not rising up. Sometimes it would float around. Luli did not wander around. When he sensed that the powerful Asmodeans were gone, he stood where he was and waited quietly. After the time for one incense stick to burn, Luli was sure that the powerful Asmodeans did not go after him. Luli pulled a long face. The powerful Asmodeans were right behind him. Why didn't they go after him? Either the powerful Asmodeans did not dare to come in, or they were teleported away. They were not near Luli. Either way, it could not be good. This might be a horrifying area. Buzzing, Luli took out the wicked bead. After a glare, the deaf Taoist came out. Luli was relieved. At least, he could use the wicked bead. Deaf Taoist. Luli told the deaf Taoist about what he saw in the white mist and asked, "Do you know this place? Is it dangerous?" The deaf Taoist's pupils contracted. There was a hint of joy in the depth of his eyes. Then his expressions changed. His lips trembled as he asked, "Master, did you vaguely see 5 tall mountains piercing through the clouds in the white fog?" "Yes." Luli nodded and asked, "What is it? Is there a problem?" "Misty Soul Mountain." The deaf Taoist's breaths were short. He took a few breaths before he said, "This is one of the most horrifying places in the ancient demon's dead ground. My great-grandpa and grandpa both died in there. Only my father was sent out by my grandpa at the cost of all his energy. Luli was taken aback. He remembered that the deaf Taoist's great-grandpa and grandpa died here. No wonder the deaf Taoist was both happy and surprised. He had been thinking about finding the remains of his ancestors. In his haste, Luli didn't think too much. He thought this was just an average formation of illusion, and he broke in. This Soul Fog Mountain is very mysterious. The deaf Taoist continued, "The perilous land can move, but it is not fixed. Sometimes it will be in the deepest part of the ancient demon's burial ground, and sometimes it will be in the outer area. Some people call this place one of the 5 most horrifying places in the ancient demon's burial ground." Luli became more and more solemn. He waved his hand and said, "Let's not talk about this. Tell me why this place is so horrifying. What danger? Didn't your father escape from here? You should know this place very well, right?" There are three types of danger here. The deaf Taoist explained. The first is the maze. The maze here is horrifying. It is almost impossible to crack it completely. Only the most powerful experts would be able to withstand the pressure and fly out. Without reaching the level of a paragon in the God world, it was almost impossible to get out. The second is the invisible soul attacks. The soul attacks here are different from regular soul attacks. Usually, you can't sense them. You will be trapped in an illusion without knowing it. You will lose your mind and you will attack your own people. You might even kill yourself. Half of the powerful warriors that my grandpa brought here were killed by their own people or committed suicide. The deaf Taoist continued after a pause. The last one is the most horrifying. Master, you saw 5 mountains outside, right? Those are 5 sacred mountains. If you are unlucky, you will trigger the inhibition formation. The mountains will fly up and crush us directly. If you are powerful enough, you might survive, but you will be trapped here for the rest of your life. If you're not powerful enough, you will be crushed to death in an instant. Luli was speechless. The 5 mountains pierced through the clouds. He wondered how large they were. If they were to fall down from the sky, was it possible for anyone to survive? Only a paragon in the divinity could survive. He just wandered into a random place, only to find himself in such a perilous place. More importantly, Blood Fairy was not here. To solve the illusion was too difficult. Even if Luli could find the formation patterns and the formation cores, without Blood Fairy, it would still be difficult. Luli was not afraid of soul attacks. After all, he had the dragon soul. The dragon soul should be able to withstand any kind of soul attack. Any kind of soul attack would have some energy swarming into the soul. Once the energy entered the soul, the dragon soul would notice and devour the energy. Is there anything else I need to be aware of? If not, go back into the wicked bead. Luli asked. The deaf Taoist answered after some thoughts. My father once said that it is best not to jump up from the ground in here, let alone fly. Also, the slower you move, the safer you will be. If you rush around, you will trigger the inhibition formations and you will be crushed by the mountains. Also, Master, if you find the remains of my great-grandpa, please let me know. Okay. Luli nodded. He put the deaf Taoist back into the wicked bead and then let Chi out. Little White had eaten a lot of cloud crystals and had fallen asleep. Luli left it alone. Brother, as soon as Chi came out, she screamed happily. She grabbed Luli's arm like a coy kitten. She said in a coquettish tone, Brother, what have you been doing lately? I am bored to death by staying in the wicked bead all the time. Oh, how are the 3 wicked ones? They are 3 of the Asmodeans. Luli patted Chi face fondly and said, I killed them. They were courting death for blaspheming my Shi'er. There are many dangerous places here. I think it will be safer for you to stay in the wicked bead. Once it is safe, I will let you out or I will cultivate with you. Good, you are the best. Chi smiled sweetly. She looked around and asked, Brother, where is this place? Why is the haze so thick? This is the misty Soul Mountain. Luli did not explain too much. He said, gently, the formation of illusion here is powerful. I need some time to crack it. During this time, you must cultivate in the wicked bead. I will let you out after I crack it. That is why I am letting you out now. Chi eyes dimmed down. She asked in a weak voice, Brother, can't I go with you? I can just stay here and watch when you crack the formation. No. Luli shook his head. The formation of illusion here is powerful. Even if I hold your hand, I can get lost without realizing it. You will not be able to find me. Chi turned pale. She shook her head at once. Then I will go back to the wicked bead. I will lose my mind if I get lost in there. Okay, that was what Luli wanted. He patted Chi silky hair and said, Cultivate. I will take the wicked bead with me at all times. I will stay with you. Cultivate. I will let you out as soon as we get out. Okay. Chapter 1504. Chi was put away by Luli, but he was still standing on the spot. There was still a faint fragrance on his face, and the amazing feeling of her lips was still lingering in Luli's mind. Luli did not have many ripples in his heart. Instead, he frowned and felt a bit of headache. Which young man did not yearn for love, and which young lady was not passionate? Luli could feel Qi Shier's abnormal dependence on him and her hazy feelings towards him. Luli had always treated Qi Shier as his younger sister and took care of her on behalf of Qi Junfeng. He even had a feeling that she was his daughter. Therefore, he did not have too many romantic feelings towards Qi Shier. Perhaps he was too lonely in the divinity and wanted to find a sister to dote on so that he could have some comfort in his heart. Qi Shier's father passed away when she was 10 years old. Her mother was almost non-existent in her life. When she was at her most helpless and lost, Luli appeared. She transferred her love for Qi Junfeng to Luli. In addition, Luli helped the massacre shrine to hold up the sky and tide over many disasters. In her heart, Luli was a peerless hero. Naturally, as time went by, the innocent little girl grew up. Her heart began to develop the desire for love. Naturally, Luli was the perfect lover in her heart. It could be said that Qi Shier's love was abnormal and unhealthy. She still could not tell if her love for Luli was transferred from Qi Junfeng's father's love or her true love for a man. Luli was also having a headache about this. However, he knew that he did not have the time to care about this and did not know how to deal with it. He could only choose to avoid it and not think about it. He stood there for a moment and cast these thoughts aside. What he needed to do now was to survive in the Misty Soul Mountain and leave it safely. If he died here, then everything would be meaningless. He began to walk forward slowly. Psychic power could not be used here, and he could only see with his eyes. However, the fog here was too thick and the visibility was only 30 feet. How could he see? Apart from fog, he could not see anything else. As he walked, he closed his eyes. Since he could not see with his eyes, then he would use his heart to sense the movement of the inhibition formation, to sense the situation around him, to find clues, to find the formation eye, and to find an opportunity to break the formation. He slowed down and stopped from time to time. He did not purposely follow a fixed direction and walked randomly. The ground was flat. Luli didn't feel any fluctuation of inhibition formations along the way. An hour later, Luli opened his eyes in surprise. He didn't sense any fluctuation of inhibition formations, nor did he find anything strange. He felt he was just walking around on a piece of flat land, and there was nothing. There's a huge problem. Luli didn't feel lucky at all. Instead, he was troubled. If he couldn't sense the fluctuation of inhibition formations, he wouldn't be able to find anything. If they couldn't find the formation core of the formation, how could they even talk about breaking the formation? If he couldn't find anything, he could only wander around like this for the rest of his life. In the end, he would be driven mad and trapped here until he died. Move faster. After some thoughts, Luli sped up and sped up. He continued to sense with his eyes closed. After walking for only a few kilometers, he felt that something was wrong. It was not because of the fluctuation of inhibition formations, but because something was happening in Luli's soul. The dragon soul glowed and swallowed some strange energy that did not belong to Luli's soul. Amazing. If it were not for the reaction from the dragon's soul, Luli wouldn't even know that strange energy was invading his soul. No, one of the deaf Taoists said that people in here would go crazy for no reason and attack their own people. The inhibition formations of Elder God are much stronger than the current ones. Luli exclaimed to himself. He couldn't figure out why the inhibition formations of Elder God were so strong in the ancient times. After all these years, they didn't make any progress. Instead, they had regressed. What was going on? Did the ancient times go through a drastic change? Could many inhibition formations of Elder God not be passed down? Luli couldn't figure it out. After a while, he pressed on, but he didn't speed up. The deaf Taoist said that the slower he walked, the safer he would be. He could die easily if he dashed around randomly. Just like that, Luli wandered around randomly. Hour after hour, day after day. He had been walking for 3 days, but he gained nothing. He couldn't sense any fluctuation of inhibition formations here, let alone crack them. Also, there should be a strong seal in the space here. He could not fly or teleport to Blood Fairy in a one-way manner. The only thing he learned was that the soul attacks here had been attacking him silently. The dragon soul had been devouring and transferring energy to Luli to help him improve his divine energy and body. This was not bad. Never mind. Luli decided to stay. He sat on the ground and waited for Blood Fairy to come. Blood Fairy said that she would come to him in a month or two. When she came, it might be easier for him to crack the formation. After all, Blood Fairy was a spirit, and she could easily find the formation cores. Outside the misty soul mountain, that powerful Asmodean did not go far. He was sitting on a hill tens of thousands of miles away. He seemed to be waiting for something. The one he was waiting for did not come. Today, a supreme human warrior from the divinity came. Yuqing Tian had caught up with him. When Yuqing Tian noticed the Asmodean, he flew over. He wanted to ask if the Asmodean had seen Luli. However, the Asmodean misunderstood. He thought that Yuqing Tian was going to kill him. The Asmodean launched an attack at once. Yuqing Tian was already upset. Since the Asmodean attacked without saying a word, Yuqing Tian would not show any mercy. The Asmodean was as powerful as a super mighty warrior in the divinity. He had the royal bloodline of the Asmodeans and was terrifyingly strong. The Asmodean was facing a supreme human warrior from the divinity, and a powerful one at that. The battle lasted for a long time. The nearby stone peaks all exploded and terrifying cracks appeared on the ground. However, the battle did not last for too long. It ended after just 1 hour. The Asmodean was covered in blood. He knelt on one knee and blood kept coming out from his mouth. On the other hand, Yuqing Tian was not injured at all. The strength of a supreme warrior in the divinity was demonstrated perfectly in this battle. Even though the Asmodean's defense and strength were horrifying, for a supreme warrior in the divinity, the Asmodean did not feel much pressure. Yuqing Tian did not kill the Asmodean. If he wanted to, the Asmodean would have died by now. He looked at the Asmodean coldly and asked, "What's your relationship with Shi Yang, the Asmodean emperor?" Yuqing Tian did not kill the Asmodean because he found that the Asmodean had cultivated a powerful body refining method of the Asmodeans. In the region of demons, only the royal family was qualified to cultivate such a method. The Asmodean's eyes flickered. He spat out some blood and said, "My name is Shi Meng. The Asmodean emperor is my great-grandfather. Human warrior, I admit that you are powerful, but if you kill me, you will have to think about the consequences." "Ha ha!" Yuqing Tian sneered. He exerted his invisible qi and energy. The Asmodean Shi Meng's body suddenly sank, and his other leg knelt down. Yuqing Tian said with a straight face, "Don't think that I don't dare to kill you just because you are Shi Yang's great-grandson. It's just that Lord Pan and Shi Yang once fought against powerful warriors from the divinity. I will spare your life for the sake of Lord Pan. What can Shi Yang do to me if I kill you?" Chapter 1505. The Demon Emperor was powerful, but the region of Doom was small, and there were not many powerful warriors. What was more, the region of Doom was short of materials. Many materials had to be purchased from the land of Yuyan. Therefore, Yuqing Tian was not afraid of Shi Yang. Shi Meng was very unyielding. He bared his teeth and glared at Yuqing Tian, shouting, "Then kill me. Kill me." Boom! Yuqing Tian raised his hand and struck out a golden handprint. Shi Meng's entire body was slapped into the ground. A portrait appeared in Yuqing Tian's hand, and he asked, "Stop yelling. Look at this portrait carefully. Have you seen this person before? I just want to ask you something. You're the one who wants to kill me." Shi Meng looked up and found the portrait familiar. He took a closer look and laughed. "You are looking for this man? Is he from your family? Ha ha ha, don't look for him. He is doomed." "Doomed?" Yuqing Tian was surprised. He asked, "Tell me the details." Shi Meng pointed to the north and said with a sneer, "That guy has entered the misty soul mountain. Do you think he is doomed? I advise you to give up. He has been in there for many days. Even if you can find him, he will be a dead man." Misty Soul Mountain? Yuqing Tian's facial muscles twitched. There was a trace of fear in the depth of his eyes. When he entered the ancient demon deadland, he was trapped in the misty soul mountain for many years. In the end, he made it to the supreme realm in the divinity and forced his way out. Soon he calmed down. He was not as powerful as he used to be. The misty soul mountain was horrifying, but it was not a place of certain death for him now. What was more, he knew the trick. He could come out at any time. Let's go in and find him. Yuqing Tian was worried without seeing Lu Li's body. After all, it was said that Lu Li was good at inhibition formations. What if Lu Li made it? Also, if he didn't bring Lu Li's body back, he would not be able to convince the others and stop them from talking. Whoosh! Yuqing Tian flew up and rushed toward the misty soul mountain. Shimeng had just stood up and cursed in the demonic language when Yuqing Tian smashed Shimeng to the ground again. Yuqing Tian was fast. In the time for several incense sticks to burn, he arrived at the misty soul mountain. Instead, he walked around the area and observed for a while. After confirming that it was no different from the soul mist mountain from before, he strode in. Even Yuqing Tian's psychic power could not detect anything after he went in. He did not know how to crack the formation, either. He could only wander around in there, trying to see if he could run into Lu Li or find Lu Li's body. Lu Li was still cultivating. He had no idea that danger was approaching. One of the most powerful warriors in the divinity had entered the mountain of mist and was wandering around looking for him. Given Yuqing Tian's abilities, once he got close to Lu Li would not be able to run away even if he could, not to mention that he could not fly here. Also, even if Lu Li took out all the Wrath of Thunder, he still could not kill Yuqing Tian. Lu Li was studying the fundamental principle of spatial energy. Lu Li felt this fundamental principle had endless possibilities. At the very least, the fundamental principle of spatial energy that Lu Li could borrow was limited to a radius of 3 miles. If he could borrow the power of space within a radius of 1,000 li, 10,000 li, or even 1,000,000 li, then it wouldn't be a problem for him to suppress a paragon of the immortal world. It was a good idea, but the final result required time and luck. Lu Li had learned the fundamental principle of spatial energy, but it didn't mean that he could completely master it. Take his Slayer's true will, for example. He had been comprehending it for many years, but he had not made much progress. It was one of the divine world's 10 great true wills, and Slayer was a famous supreme being expert in the past. Time flew by. Maybe it was because Lu Li was lucky, or the mountain of mist was too strange. It had been 20 days, but Yuqing Tian still hadn't found Lu Li. Today, Lu Li suddenly woke up because he sensed a hint of danger, as if some kind of danger was approaching. This is strange. Lu Li blinked in confusion. Powerful warriors were sensitive to the sense of danger. However, that was the moment before the danger appeared. It didn't mean that he could predict when the danger would come, unless he had a skill like Pan Yuqing that could seek fortune and avoid danger. Lu Li thought for a moment. The sense of danger had been lingering in his mind, but it was not very strong. Lu Li stood up abruptly. He decided to take a walk and see if the sense of danger would still be there after he left this area. He ran to the left, but the sense of danger was still there. He turned left again, but the sense of danger was growing stronger. He turned back with determination. This time, the sense of danger was weakening. After he ran for dozens of miles, the sense of danger disappeared. What was going on? Lu Li was shocked. He had lived for many years, experienced many battles of life and death, and encountered all kinds of situations. But this was the first time he had encountered something like this. It was unbelievable. Lu Li thought about it and realized that there could only be 2 reasons for this. First, the dragon's soul had sensed the danger in advance and sent him a signal. Second, some strange creature or powerful warrior had secretly sent him a signal through some powerful skill, telling him that danger was approaching. What kind of danger was it? Was it the dragon's soul or some mysterious powerful warrior that sent the signal? Lu Li could not figure it out. After a while, he walked away with determination. The farther he could go, the better. After a day, Lu Li had no idea where he was. He found another place to sit down and wait for Blood Fairy to come. The following days were peaceful. After 19 days, Luli was shocked again. The sense of danger in his soul came back, just like before. All of a sudden, Luli's hair stood on end. Move! While running, Luli tried to sense the dragon's soul in his soul. The dragon's soul was quiet, without any movement. Clearly, the warning was not from the dragon's soul. Luli tried to sense the surroundings again, but it was so quiet that it was eerily quiet. There was no sign of any living being. After 3 miles, the sense of danger disappeared again. Luli moved on. Whether the sense of danger was real or not, he decided to stay away from this place. What Luli did not know was, every time, not long after he left, Yu Qingtian would come to where he was sitting. This time, when Yu Qingtian came, his eyes were filled with doubt. He glanced over where Luli was sitting and murmured, "Someone has been sitting here. There's clearly a lingering breath of a human being. He looks young. I think it must be Luli. But how come he can leave in advance twice? Can he sense my arrival from afar?" Yu Qingtian couldn't figure it out either. He rubbed his forehead with a headache. It was difficult to find a person in this damn place. Luli had just left. Even if Yu Qingtian could track Luli down, he could not catch up with Luli. The formation of illusion was changing all the time. Yu Qingtian was only 3 miles away from Luli, but under the influence of the formation of illusion, he might never be able to get close to Luli. Don't push me. Chapter 1506. This time, after Luli ran away, Luli could not afford to be careless. He walked for 3 days and had no idea how far he had gone. Finally, Luli found a place to sit down and cultivate. This time, Luli was lucky. He had cultivated here for 2 months. Yu Qingtian did not come after him. Finally, Blood Fairy, whom Luli had been waiting for, finally came. Buzzing, a ray of blood-red light came out from under Luli's feet, which scared him. He was overjoyed to see that it was Blood Fairy. "Master, I am back." Blood Fairy's voice rang in Luli's mind. Luli grinned. "I'm glad that you're not too late. Did you find anything in the Forest of Stones?" "Yes," Blood Fairy replied. "I've memorized all of the matrices in the forest. You can study them when you have time. The matrices are too complicated. It's impossible to learn them all in a short time." "Good. Smart." Luli nodded. It was fortunate that Blood Fairy did not choose to stay there for long. Otherwise, if she stayed there for years or decades, Luli would be trapped here for years or even decades. "Master," Blood Fairy continued, "where are you now? I noticed that the formations here are even more complicated, dozens of times more complicated than in the Forest of Stones. Are you trapped in there?" "Yes." Luli nodded. "This is the Mountain of Mist. The formations here are horrifying. I cannot leave. Now that you are here, it will be easier. I will go and have a look." "Master, let the immortal's body out," Blood Fairy said. Luli let the immortal's body out, and Blood Fairy snuck into the immortal's body. The immortal's body glowed. He was clearly stronger. Then, under the immortal's body's feet came out a ray of light. Blood Fairy's tentacles reached into the ground. Luli was reassured. Blood Fairy's ability to crack formations was proven. Blood Fairy had stayed in the Forest of Stones for several months. At the very least, she had a deeper understanding of the forbidden ground of Elder God. It was highly possible that she could take Luli out. Luli stopped cultivating. He took out the wicked bead and used psychic power to check what Qi Shi'er and Little White were doing. Little White was still sleeping soundly. There were fewer cloud crystals, but Little White's aura was stronger. It seemed like it had been improving. Qi Shi'er didn't cultivate. She sat alone in the hall with her knees bent and her hands supporting her chin. She was in a daze out of boredom. She looked a little lonely and desolate, which made Luli's heart skip a beat. Luli let Qi Shi'er out. After all, it would take Blood Fairy some time. As long as they did not move, they would be safe. "Brother," Qi Shi'er felt a white glare, and then she appeared outside. Seeing Luli's face, her pretty face glowed. She grabbed Luli with joy. "Lass, you must be bored out of your mind recently, right?" Luli patted Qi Shi'er's head and nodded. I think you have grown taller. My Shier has become a big girl. Chi Shier lowered her head shyly. Then she looked up at Lu Li and said with hidden bitterness, "No matter how much I grow up, I will always be a little girl to you." Chi Shier stuck out her chest as she spoke. Lu Li averted his eyes in embarrassment. He cleared his throat and said, "Sure, you are still young. There are many things you do not understand. Also, you have sisters-in-law. It is a pity that I do not have the ability now. They are still in the mortal world. I am not powerful enough to bring them over." Sisters-in-law? Chi Shier was upset. She lowered her head and thought for a moment. Then her eyes glowed. She looked up and asked, "Them? How many sisters-in-law do I have?" Well, Lu Li saw the glow in Chi Shier's eyes. He said awkwardly, "3, huh?" Chi Shier grinned. Her eyes turned into crescent moons. She stuck out her tongue and said, "If you have 3 sisters-in-law, then 4 or 5 can be the same. Isn't that right, brother?" Lu Li was speechless. He curled his lips. He had been flirted with by a little girl. He knocked on Chi Shier's head and said, "What are you talking about? You are still young. You will understand when you grow up." "I am not young anymore," Chi Shier murmured. Then she looked up and said, "Brother, since you say I am young, then let's wait for a few more years. In a few years, you won't say I'm young anymore, right?" Lu Li was speechless. He sighed as he looked at Chi Shier's determined eyes and her beautiful face. He was about to say something when he sensed something. That sense of danger came back. Is this sense real or not? Or is it an illusion from the misty soul mountain? Lu Li was confused. He hesitated for a moment. The sense of danger was getting stronger. He said to Chi Shier at once, "Sure, go in first. I will talk to you later. I have something to take care of." Chi Shier pouted. She thought Lu Li did not want to talk about this and was throwing her into the wicked bead on purpose. After a pause, she said, "Brother, let's not talk about this. Stay with me for a bit longer." No, the sense of danger was getting stronger. Lu Li's wicked bead glowed. He said with determination, "Shier, I really have something to take care of. Go in and cultivate. I will be with you later." With that said, the wicked bead enveloped Chi Shier. At first, she was resisting, but in the end, she obeyed Lu Li and went into the wicked bead. "Blood Fairy, check to the south. What is there? I have a strong sense of danger." Lu Li did not run away at once. Instead, he sent a message to Blood Fairy. Blood Fairy's tentacles reached out to the south to sense what was going on. After a moment, Lu Li heard a shout in his mind, "Master, a powerful warrior is coming. I think it is a supreme warrior from the divinity." The sense of danger is real. Lu Li was taken aback. The supreme warrior from the divinity was coming. It must be Yu Qing Tian. Regardless of who it was, Lu Li did not hesitate. He took the immortal's body and ran toward the northwest. Boom! Just as he was about 10 miles away, a muffled explosion came from behind him. The ground began to tremble. Blood Fairy's frightened voice rang out. "Oh no, Master. That powerful warrior has hit the ground and triggered a backlash from the inhibition formation. Something big is going to happen." "What is going on?" Lu Li asked while he was running. As soon as he finished his words, he knew what was going on. Right at that moment, he heard a shrill noise above his head. Then, Lu Li felt the light dim down. What? Chapter 1507. The deaf Taoist once said that there were 5 mountains here. If the inhibition formations here were triggered, the 5 mountains would come down. Those who were not strong would be suppressed to death, and those who were strong would be suppressed to the point that they could not move and would be trapped. Lu Li did not know if Yu Qing Tian would be crushed to death. All he knew was that if he didn't do something, he would be smashed into pieces. Although his physical body was considered strong, how terrifying would it be when such a huge mountain pressed down on him? How could he survive it with his weak defense? Buzzing, the immortal's body moved. He sat on the ground and grabbed Lu Li with one hand. The immortal's body bent down and put his elbows on the ground. He was ready to use his strong body to fight against the mountain and fight for a chance of survival for Lu Li. Blood Fairy reacted quickly. Though the immortal's body might be destroyed, it would be better than Lu Li being crushed to death. If the immortal's body was destroyed, Lu Li could find another body for Blood Fairy. Into the wicked bead, an idea came to Lu Li's mind. If he could go into the wicked bead and hide the wicked bead in the immortal's body, it would be safer. But in a split second, Lu Li rejected this idea. The mountain was pressing down, and space was suppressed. He might not be able to use the wicked bead. If the wicked bead was crushed, Chi-Shur, Little White, and the Deaf Taoist would all die. Spatial force. He abruptly waved his hand in midair, gathering all the spatial energy in the surroundings to block the mountain that was whistling down from above. Boom! With a muffled sound, the spatial force Lu Li gathered was disrupted. He could no longer suppress space. That being said, the mountain slowed down a bit. Lu Li felt the force was weakening as well. Boom! Even so, the mountain was pressing down with irresistible force. The immortal's body was bending his back. As the mountain pressed down, Lu Li heard many sounds of bones cracking. He realized that his vision had completely darkened. At the same time, he felt a powerful force pressing down on his back. His thunderclap armor was glowing, but it could not defend against that powerful force. Lu Li's internal organs and many bones in his body felt like they were about to shatter. Boom! The ground nearby shook violently, but surprisingly, there wasn't a big hole in the ground. There wasn't even a trace. It was obvious that there was a powerful restriction on the ground. Otherwise, even if the ground was made of iron, it would have caved in. PFFF, Hichiwichu. Lu Li spat out some blood and took a deep breath. He tried to move his body, but found that other than his head, his body was completely pinned down, unable to move at all. If it wasn't for the fact that his head was between the divine corpse's fingers, he probably wouldn't be able to move his head at all. Blood Fairy. He didn't have time to heal himself. He sent a telepathic message to Blood Fairy. What's the situation? The situation is very bad. Blood Fairy replied. The god's body is almost destroyed, but there is still a chance for it to recover. This mountain was no ordinary mountain. There is a powerful and strange restriction on it. There's a powerful force suppressing you and the god's corpse. If we don't break the restriction, we'll never be able to escape. There's no rush. You can check it out first, Lu Li said weakly. He didn't think too much about it. He mobilized divine energy to heal himself first. What? 30 miles away from Lu Li, another person was being suppressed. Yu Qingtian was being suppressed by another mountain. Yu Qingtian was confused. How did two mountains fall from the sky? Shouldn't he and Lu Li be suppressed together? What surprised him was, he sensed a faint trace of a human being from 30 miles away. It was the same as before. Clearly, it was Lu Li's. How could Lu Li survive when he was trapped by the mountain? Yu Qingtian was a powerful warrior, but he was injured and could not move. How could Lu Li survive? Yu Qingtian could not figure it out. He thought for a while and began to heal himself. Then, he would try to find a way to escape. He was once trapped by a mountain for over a decade. He had some experience in dealing with mountains. Now that his abilities had improved, he was confident that he could escape. Lu Li was healing himself quickly. Since he could not take any healing pellets, he had to rely on divine energy to heal himself. It took him 5 days to recover. At the very least, he felt better. Blood Fairy, what is it? Lu Li asked. He knew that Blood Fairy had been checking the inhibition formations in the mountain. He could not move at all. If Blood Fairy could not solve the inhibition formations in the mountain, then he would die here for the rest of his life. He might be fine if he was trapped for a decade or 100 years. However, if he was trapped for hundreds of years, he might kill himself or go insane. This is not good, Blood Fairy replied telepathically. The forbidden grounds of the ancient god are incredibly powerful. There must be many layers of restrictions inside. My tentacles can only penetrate 3 of the outer layers, and there must be a layer in the middle that my tentacles can't penetrate. Even the 3 outer layers are complicated and powerful, not to mention the one in the inner layer. Based on what I know about the inhibition formations of Elder God, I cannot understand many of them. 4 layers of inhibition formations. Lu Li exclaimed. The inhibition formations of Elder God were much more powerful than the current ones. Blood Fairy was good at inhibition formations. Now, she could not even understand them, let alone crack them. Don't worry, there must be a way. Luli took a few deep breaths. He told himself to calm down. There would always be a way out. This was not the end of his journey. After the time for one incense stick to burn, Luli said, "Blood Fairy, send me the formation patterns in the stone forest. Also, send me the information about the formations in the mountain. We will figure out a way together so that we can corroborate with each other and make deductions together. It will be more efficient." Many inhibition formations of Elder God involved laws of heaven and earth, which Blood Fairy did not understand. Luli himself had learned many laws of heaven and earth. It might be easier for him to solve the inhibition formations of Elder God by corroborating with each other. Okay, Blood Fairy took back her tentacles and reached into Luli's mind. Soon, countless pieces of information came in. Luli felt his mind was going to explode. It took Blood Fairy almost an hour to finish. It took Luli 14 hours to sort through all the information in his mind. The inhibition formations of Elder God are powerful and mysterious, Luli tried to sense. He found that there were many complicated and dazzling formations in his mind. In the old days, he could only fill up one piece of paper. But now, he could fill up 100 pieces of paper. In the old days, the formations were like fireflies. Now, they were like stars in the sky. They were not on the same level. No wonder Blood Fairy could not understand them. Don't rush. Take your time. Luli took a few deep breaths. He entered the transcendent state, ready to study. At that moment, he had an idea. If he and Blood Fairy could learn the inhibition formations of Elder God in the mountain, would they have a chance to take over the mountain? Hiss, hiss, if he could truly take down this God mountain, it would definitely be an utmost treasure, an existence that surpassed even a saint-grade legendary weapon. Or was the mountain itself a primordial treasure? Chapter 1508. Yuqing Tian was a freak. His wounds were healed in just 2 days. He did not try to crack the inhibition formation of the Elder God on the mountain. Instead, he planned to crack the formation by force. A feeble yellow glare came out from his body. Then a light yellow shield appeared around him. The shield was growing larger, and it was supporting the mountain bit by bit. Boom! However, this shield only lasted for a breath of time before the sacred mountain crashed down. Yuqing Tian used this moment to move his body 300 feet away with great difficulty. Yuqing Tian should have been able to cover 30 miles in the time for one breath. However, there was a strange force field in the mountain that greatly limited his speed. Therefore, he could only move 300 feet. That being said, there was a chance for him to get out. Hiss, hiss, Yuqing Tian was suppressed again. Some of his bones were broken. He was in so much pain that his mouth twitched. How many years had it been since he was last injured? He flew into a rage at the thought of this. It was all because of Luli. The fact that Luli was still alive made Yuqing Tian unable to suppress his anger and killing intent. He wished he could get out as soon as possible and find a way to kill Luli. Just now, when he could move again, he took 2 healing pellets so he could recover quickly. In just half a day, he had recovered. Once again, a yellowish glow came out from his body. At the same time, his face turned pale. This shield was no ordinary shield. Instead, it was a secret technique that he had created himself. It was a powerful shield that he had condensed by burning his own powerful blood essence. With this shield, he could even survive a strike from the King of Pan. This was his most powerful means of defense. That being said, Essence blood was precious, and it would damage his foundation. If it were not for the fact that he wanted to get out as soon as possible, he would not use it. The shield grew bigger and bigger. In the end, it pushed up the mountain a bit more. He took 2 healing pellets in a flash and moved quickly at the same time. Boom! He had just moved for 300 feet when a mountain pressed down again. Yuqing Tian spat out some blood. His face that was pressed against the ground was twisted. He grimaced in pain and yelled, "Luli, I will return the pain to you 100 times over after I get out of here. Half a year. Yu Qing Tian calculated that it would take at least half a year to get out. The 5 divine mountains could cover a distance of 100 miles. At the moment, he was in the middle of the divine mountains, which meant that he had to cross a distance of 50 miles. Moving 300 feet a day would take about half a year to get out. In other words, he would have to endure the pain of being crushed by the divine mountain every day. His bones would have to break once every day, and it would take him half a year to get out. Of course, half a year was nothing for an expert at Yu Qingtian's level. Breaking a bone every day was not a problem other than the physical pain. Back then, Yu Qingtian had also been suppressed by the divine mountain, but he had spent a total of 17 years to get out. He had also suffered even more. Now, this was really nothing to him. Lu Li and the immortal's body did not move. They could not move even if they wanted to. Lu Li and Blood Fairy had been studying the formations in the mountain. The formations were complicated and difficult to learn. Most importantly, the Forbidden Ancient God was very different from the current spirit design. The Forbidden Ancient God was derived from the Heaven and Earth spirit design and contained too many laws of heaven and earth. The current inhibition formations were more like pure formations. What mattered more was the strength of the formation. In the old days, the Forbidden Ancient God relied on Heaven and Earth spirit design directly. But now, the current inhibition formations were using Heaven and Earth spirit design to form certain skills. It could be said that the current inhibition formations were more flexible and ingenious, just like the 3,000 paths. That being said, the current inhibition formations were not as powerful and domineering as the old ones. Blood Fairy did not understand the laws of heaven and earth or profound meanings. She only knew the specialized formation. Over the years, Lu Li had learned many fundamental meanings and laws of heaven and earth. He was proficient in inhibition formations. Therefore, he could study the Forbidden Ancient God in the mountain faster. Maybe, when Blood Fairy could not figure out, Lu Li could understand everything by just looking at one point. He passed on what he had learned to Blood Fairy in time, and Blood Fairy passed on what she had learned to Lu Li. They verified with each other and worked on it over and over again. Their progress was fast. Lu Li did not want to take control of the mountain immediately and make it his own. He only wanted to control the mountain to fly away so that he could get out. Of course, if he could crack the mountain completely and take control of it, that would be good as well. He would have a powerful artifact, one that could defeat the supreme warriors in the divinity. Time flew by. Soon, for months had passed. Once again, Lu Li passed on what he had learned to Blood Fairy. 3 days later, the latter said something that made Lu Li excited. "Master, I have a vague idea of where to go. Give me some more time. I think I can change the formation patterns on the mountain and let the mountain fly away. Then you can get out." "There is no hurry," Lu Li replied. "Apart from the fact that I cannot move, everything else is fine. Our ultimate goal is to see if we can take control of the mountain. Don't let the mountain fly away. Otherwise, it will be difficult to take control of the mountain." "Take control of the mountain," Blood Fairy replied bitterly. "To take control of the mountain, we will have to break the seal. Given my current abilities, I cannot even reach my tentacles in, unless I can evolve again." "Evolve again?" This time, it was Lu Li's turn to smile bitterly. Later on, he found many crystal of icy soul for Blood Fairy, but she could not evolve again. He knew that crystal of icy soul was no longer of any use to Blood Fairy, unless he could find more advanced materials. However, he could not even move at the moment. Where could he find materials for her? "Study it," Lu Li said. Once again, he entered the transcendent state to study the inhibition of Elder God in the mountain. During this period of time, he had been studying these ancient God restrictions, which allowed him to improve his understanding of formation restrictions. He had a strong feeling that if he improved his ability in this aspect, he should be comparable to a divine craftsman guru. Of course, this was only in terms of inhibition formations. To become a master craftsman, one must be able to make holy grade relics. Lu Li was not good at forging artifacts. He did not have much practical experience. He could not even make a supreme relic, let alone a holy grade relic. Time flew by. Another 2 months had passed. Blood Fairy had not told Luli that she could crack the inhibition formations of the mountain. However, Yuqing Tian had gotten out. There was a huge mountain here. Yuqing Tian found his way easily. Luli also sensed that there was a powerful warrior outside the mountain. Yuqing Tian's energy was so strong that it was hard not to sense it. Chapter 1509. The worst-case scenario had come. Yuqing Tian was here, and he was right next to Luli. If it were not for the fact that there was a mountain between them, Luli would have lost all hope. He had experienced the strength of supreme warrior in the divinity. There was no way he could escape. Separated by a mountain, Luli had not lost all hope. That being said, his breaths were getting shorter. Many possibilities popped up in his mind. He sent a message to Blood Fairy, trying to ask her how she was doing. Blood Fairy did not reply. Luli did not know what she was doing. Luli could not move. He had to wait quietly. He hoped that he could take his chances. There was a mountain between them. Yuqing Tian could not break the mountain and kill him. Soon, Yuqing Tian told Luli that he had plenty of ways. Luli did not do anything. He just punched at the golden mountain. Boom! With a muffled sound, the mountain gave out a golden glare. The mountain did not move one bit. Yuqing Tian's attack was not enough to move the mountain, let alone destroy it. Oh, the mountain was fine, but not Luli. He felt a strong force was pressing down on him. He felt suffocated, and his bones were almost broken. Bang! Soon, Yuqing Tian punched again. His strength was neither strong nor weak, but it was enough to trigger the inhibition formation of the mountain to defend itself. Luli could not stand it any longer. He spat out a mouthful of blood. Ha ha ha! Yuqing Tian laughed. Bastard, don't worry. Let's take our time. I will break your bones one by one. You will enjoy a few months of purgatory. Then, I will kill you and bring you back to the Overlord's mansion. Bang! Another punch. Luli felt his bones were about to crack. He was in the Immortal's body's hand, and the mountain was pressing down on his fist. The Immortal's body was strong. His bones would not break easily, but the strong force would break his bones bit by bit. Bang, bang, bang. Yuqing Tian punched 3 more times. Luli's bones could not stand it anymore. His ribs began to crack. One of his ribs pierced into his internal organs. Luli could not help but groan in pain. Blood gushed out from his mouth. His face turned pale. Ha ha ha. Yuqing Tian could sense Li's situation easily. He grinned and said, Luli, how does it feel? Don't worry, it's still early. Let's take it slow. When all the bones in your body are broken, I will let you slowly recover, and then slowly let your bones continue to break. After you've broken 10 times, I'll let you die. Don't you think that feels wonderful? If Yuqing Tian attacked the Divine Mountain, it would cause the restriction of the Divine Mountain to defend itself, which would result in a powerful backlash. If Yuqing Tian's attacks were any fiercer, Luli would have been crushed to death in an instant. This was the viciousness of Yuqing Tian. Luli said nothing. He didn't even open his eyes. He knew it was pointless to say anything now. Even if he scolded Yuqing Tian as an old dog, what was the use of it other than making his mouth feel better? Bang! Yuqing Tian attacked again. This time, the bones in Li's legs were broken. If this went on, it would be just as Yuqing Tian said. All the bones in Li's body would be crushed, but he would not die. Li's body was strong. A warrior of his realm wouldn't die, even if all the bones in his body were broken. Even if his heart was crushed, he wouldn't die in a short time. With some elixirs, he could recover soon. Well, you have guts. Yuqing Tian nodded and said, You are so badly injured and you don't say a word. Luli, you are something. Do you want me to give you a chance? Surrender to me and serve me for 10,000 years. Then I will spare your life. Of course, Yuqing Tian would not let Luli go. But he had an idea. If he could take Li as a sole slave and bring him back to the Overlord's city, the reputation that he and the Overlord's mansion had lost would be recovered immediately. Also, Yuqing Tian's reputation would grow. Luli was famous in the divinity. Not even the craftsman's sect could do anything to him. He even killed a deputy master of the Hall of Warfare. If he could take Lu Li as a sole slave, his reputation would soar when he got back to the divinity. What was more, he could sell Lu Li to the craftsman's sect. What did the craftsman's sect have? Relic weapons. Lu Li could be sold for at least 3 to 5 holy relics. Lu Li's mouth twitched. He put on a mocking smile, but he still said nothing. Yu Qingtian thought about it and punched again. He broke some of Lu Li's bones. Then he said coldly, Lu Li, think about Qixia. Think about your subordinates of the massacre shrine. If you die, I promise you that I will find all of them. I will kill all the men and turn all the women into prostitutes. By then, it will be your own fault. The mocking smile on Lu Li's face grew stronger. He had seen this trick of Yu Qingtian many times. It was nothing more than coercion and temptation. Nothing new. Make him a sole slave? He would rather die. He closed his eyes and sent a message to Blood Fairy again. He was confused. What was wrong with Blood Fairy? Why didn't she answer his message? No matter how bad the situation was, she should at least give him a reply. At least he could die in peace. Bang, bang, bang. Yu Qingtian was enraged that Lu Li was ignoring him. He attacked for 3 times in a row. Lu Li could not stand it any longer. His bones were shattered, including his neck. He could not even lift his head. His vision gradually became blurry, and he could vaguely smell the aura of death. If Yu Qingtian continued to attack, he would definitely be shocked to death. The thunder armor was strong. It might be able to withstand strong attacks, but not this kind of force. The force could pass through because Lu Li's physical body was not strong enough. If he could be 100 times stronger, he would not die no matter what. Of course, it was difficult to improve one's physical body. The higher one was, the harder it would be. What? Right when Lu Li was about to pass out, he suddenly felt Blood Fairy moved. Blood Fairy left the immortal's body in a blur and went into the mountain. What is going on? Lu Li could not figure out. Blood Fairy had ignored him. Why did she go into the mountain now? Was she going to give up on him? A moment later, Lu Li did not have the energy to think about it. He dropped his head and passed out. Yu Qingtian did not sense the change in Blood Fairy. Even if he did, he would not be concerned. When Lu Li passed out, a glint of killing intent rose in Yu Qingtian's eyes. He wanted to kill Lu Li right away. As long as Yu Qingtian made 2 or 3 more moves, Lu Li would not be able to stand it. Chapter 15:10. Lu Li slept for 2 days. His body began to recover. Over the 2 days, he had recovered a bit. Some of his bones were connected and healing slowly. Of course, there were some bones that Lu Li could not heal without divine energy. For example, the bones that pierced into his organs could not heal. Lu Li would feel a heart-wrenching pain whenever he moved. This time it was really heart-wrenching pain. When Lu Li woke up, he opened his eyes weakly. He checked and found that Yu Qingtian was still outside the mountain. Lu Li had the urge to stop healing. When he recovered, Yu Qingtian would attack the mountain again. Lu Li would have to endure the pain of having his bones crushed again. Wait, something is not right. Lu Li remembered how Blood Fairy behaved before he passed out. A glimmer of hope rose in his heart. He tried to talk to Blood Fairy again. However, to his surprise, he could not do so. The spiritual connection between his soul and Blood Fairy had weakened. What was going on? Lu Li thought about it. He believed that there could only be 2 reasons for the weakening of the spiritual connection. Either Blood Fairy had left, or she had entered the inhibition formations in the innermost layer of the mountain. Has Blood Fairy abandoned me? Gone to a faraway place? An idea came to Lu Li's mind, but he immediately rejected it. If Blood Fairy wanted to leave, she would have done so a long time ago. Moreover, Blood Fairy was a spirit, so the sacred mountain had no effect on her. Even if she wanted to leave, she could wait until he was completely dead. Lu Li remembered that Blood Fairy did not reply to him. A bold idea came to his mind. Had Blood Fairy entered the inhibition formations in the mountain? Did that mean Blood Fairy had a chance to take control of the mountain? I cannot die. Lu Li had a glimmer of hope. He decided to hang on until Blood Fairy took control of the mountain. By then, he might have a chance to escape. He began to gather his divine power to heal his injuries. He controlled his divine power to wrap around the rib and slowly moved it out of his heart and lungs. The intense pain made him gasp a few times. At the same time, he grunted. Yu Qingtian was sitting on the ground. He was trying to sense Lu Li's condition. When he noticed that Lu Li was healing, he was overjoyed. If Lu Li did not heal, it would not be fun. He wanted to wait until Lu Li's injuries were almost healed so that he could injure him again and again, making Lu Li suffer a fate worse than death. Time went by bit. Soon, 3 days had passed. Lu Li's wounds were more than half healed during these 3 days. His bones were healing, and his heart and lungs were healing. In another 2 or 3 days, he would be completely recovered. Unfortunately, Yu Qingtian was not going to give Lu Li the chance. Yu Qingtian stood up and slapped the mountain. The golden mountain glowed, and a strong force came down. Many of Lu Li's healed bones were broken. He grimaced in pain. He couldn't help but shout, "Yu Qingtian, you bastard! Kill me if you dare! Kill me!" Ha ha ha! It was the first time Lu Li had scolded him. Yu Qingtian was not angry. Instead, he laughed out loud. The angrier Lu Li was, the happier he was. If Lu Li didn't say anything, he wouldn't feel any pleasure. It would be like punching into water, not fun at all. "Don't panic." Yu Qingtian grinned hideously. He said to Lu Li, "Bastard, stop cursing. Save your strength, because you have to enjoy this pain for a long time. Tell me, should I break your bones 10 times or 30 times? Lu Li shouted in rage. "Yu Qingtian, screw you. You are a supreme warrior in the divinity and the master of the Overlord's mansion. How can you be like a petty man who will seek revenge for the smallest grievance? If you're a man, then give your father a quick death. You want to die? Not so fast." Yu Qingtian slapped the mountain and said in a creepy voice, "When you killed my grandson, did you ever think about this day? When you destroyed my avatar, did you ever think about this day? When you rushed into the Overlord's city to slaughter, did you ever think about the day when you would fall into my hands? You have committed such a heinous crime, and you want to die so easily? It is not that simple." Yu Qingtian attacked the mountain again and again. Lu Li kept cursing and yelling. The more Lu Li scolded, the happier Yu Qingtian was. Soon, Lu Li passed out again. Yu Qingtian stopped his attacks and sat down to cultivate, waiting for Lu Li to wake up. For Yu Qingtian, this period of time was not a big deal. He had an unlimited lifespan. It was not a big deal to waste 8 to 10 years. At first, he thought about killing Lu Li. But after Lu Li scolded him, Yu Qingtian made up his mind. He must torture Lu Li until he was crazy and make him wish he was dead. That was what Lu Li wanted. Lu Li did not have the urge to be tortured. That being said, there was a chance of survival. Blood Fairy could control the mountain. How could Lu Li give up? He knew that the more he scolded Yu Qingtian, the longer Yu Qingtian would kill him. Lu Li could buy himself some time and wait for Blood Fairy to create a miracle. Of course, this was only Lu Li's opinion. Maybe Blood Fairy had left. Maybe Yu Qingtian would get tired after a few rounds and kill him. Maybe Blood Fairy could not control the core formation of the mountain. In that case, Lu Li would suffer in vain. This time, Lu Li slept for a longer period of time. He slept for 3 days and 3 nights. Continuous injuries would harm the source of a person's body. When the source of a person's body was exhausted, his ability to recover would be weakened. It was like when a person grew old, the body's functions would deteriorate. When the source of a person's body was exhausted, the body's ability to recover would be weakened. If a person were not a warrior, a serious illness could cost him his life. Lu Li began to heal after he woke up. This time, Yu Qingtian gave him more time. Lu Li spent 5 days and 5 nights recovering. Lu Li's injuries were almost healed. Then, Lu Li began to attack. "Bastard, bastard, bastard." Ha ha ha. Lu Li cursed in rage, which was a sharp contrast to Yu Qingtian's joyful laughter. Almost all of Lu Li's bones had healed. At the moment, they were being crushed bit by bit. His internal organs were crushed as well. The kind of heart-wrenching pain would drive anyone crazy. Lu Li's willpower was strong, and his tolerance to pain was particularly strong. This was something he had developed in the mortal world. The 3 days and 3 nights he spent on the wicked sorcery mountain were like a trip to hell for Lu Li. Once again, Lu Li passed out. This time, Yu Qingtian did not feel it was fun. Nodding, Yu Qingtian said, "This is the last time. When the punk wakes up, I will let him suffer again. Then I will understand him completely. I have to figure out a way to open the mountain and bring his body back. This will take some time. Well, let's do it." Chapter 15:11. Lu Li slept for 5 days and 5 nights. When he woke up, Yu Qingtian gave Lu Li 10 days to recover. Yu Qingtian wanted Lu Li to recover completely and then enjoy himself. If Lu Li refused to surrender, then he would have to kill Lu Li mercilessly. When Lu Li was fully recovered, he said, "Lu Li doesn't feel good, does it? I'm running out of patience. I'll give you one last chance. Surrender or die." Yu Qingtian's words were calm. Lu Li knew that Yu Qingtian was determined to kill Lu Li. Lu Li did not want to play around anymore. If Blood Fairy could not find a way to solve the problem of the mountain, then Lu Li would have to face death. He remained silent on the surface, but in his heart, he began to send messages to Blood Fairy. He tried again and again, but his messages were like mud sinking into the sea. There was no response. It seemed that Blood Fairy had gone far away and could not hear Lu Li's message. After the time for one incense stick to burn, Lu Li said, "Yu Qingtian, if I surrender to you, what if you kill me? Even if you don't kill me, it's easy for you to find someone to kill me. In addition, there should be a time limit for me to submit to you, right? It's impossible for me to be a slave for the rest of my life." Oh, Yu Qingtian was surprised that Lu Li suddenly changed his mind. Instinctively, he thought this was Lu Li's stalling tactic. Lu Li was a man of unyielding character. Back in the days, he dared to fight against the craftsman's sect. Later on, he killed Yuling Long. All these proved that Lu Li was a man of unyielding character. He would rather die than submit. But on second thought, it was pointless for Lu Li to stall for time. Perhaps Lu Li had been tortured for a while and was afraid. Perhaps Lu Li's desire to live made him compromise. On this thought, Yu Qingtian's heart was filled with excitement. To take Lu Li as a soul slave and bring him back to the Heaven Domination City was a glorious thing. What was more, Yu Qingtian could get a lot of benefits from the craftsman's sect. He rolled his eyes and said with a cold smile, "Lu Li, do you have any other choice apart from trusting me? If I wanted to kill you, I could just kill you right now. Why would I go through so much trouble? As for the length of enslavement, 10,000 years would do. I, Yu Qingtian, am a man of my word. If I don't keep my word, why would anyone be willing to follow me?" Yu Qingtian's words were like gold and jade. Yu Qingtian was eloquent. If Lu Li was really willing to surrender, then he would be moved. Unfortunately, Lu Li was just trying to buy more time. After a moment of silence, he said, "Give me some time to think." "All right." Yu Qingtian waved his hand generously and said, "I'll give you 3 days. After 3 days, I can only kill you." 3 days, Lu Li sighed to himself. If Blood Fairy could not do anything in 3 days, then it would be his last 3 days in the world. He closed his eyes, and his mind worked quickly, trying to find a way to save himself. He was never a person who resigned himself to fate. He would not succumb to it until the very last moment. He would do everything he could to survive. Time flew by quickly. Soon, 2 days had passed. Lu Li closed his eyes and thought for 2 days, but he couldn't come up with a solution. He was pressed down by the divine mountain and couldn't even move his body. What else could he do? Besides, even if he could move, the only thing he could do was to throw out all his Thunder God's fury. If he could not kill Yu Qingtian, he could only wait for death. This was a place where he could not fly. There was no way he could escape. Another half a day passed. When Lu Li was about to lose all hope, a voice rang in his mind like the sound of nature. His soul trembled violently. "Master, It was only 2 words, but Luli felt he had heard the voice of a living Buddha. He trembled in excitement. He replied at once, "Is that you, Blood Fairy?" "Yes." Blood Fairy replied, "Master, I am sorry. I was at a critical moment when I was studying the forbidden ground of Elder God, so I could not reply to you. Later on, I went into the innermost formation of the divine mountain. My spiritual connection with you weakened. I could not send you any messages. The innermost formation of the divine mountain." Lu Li's soul trembled again. He asked with excitement, "How is it? Have you learned anything?" "Yes," Blood Fairy replied. "I have gained control over half of the core formation of the divine mountain. I can fly the divine mountain away at any time. But there seems to be a supreme warrior in the divinity outside the divine mountain. I need to ask you." Good. Luli was overjoyed. He asked, "Do you have a way to control the divine mountain to contain the supreme warrior in the divinity?" If Yu Qing Tian could be contained, not only could Luli get out, but he could also run away easily. Blood Fairy replied after a pause, "It will be difficult because I cannot control the divine mountain completely. If I am not careful, that supreme warrior in the divinity might run away. By then, you will be in danger." "Well, there is no hurry. Let me think about it." Luli calmed down. At least, he had some tricks up his sleeves. He needed to think about how to operate. How could he suppress Yu Qing Tian under the divine mountain so that he could escape easily? Time flew by. 3 days passed by quickly. Yu Qing Tian was losing his patience. He said coldly, "Luli, have you thought about it? My patience is limited." Luli was intrigued by Yu Qing Tian's words. He opened his eyes and said, "I can surrender to you, but I am suppressed by the divine mountain. What is the point of that? We are so far away. I cannot offer my seal of soul, even if I want to." "Ha ha ha." Yu Qing Tian laughed and said, "I have been suppressed by the divine mountain twice, and I could get out both times. As long as you are willing to surrender to me, I will find a way to get you out." "Okay," Luli said, "I agree to surrender to you for 10,000 years. But you must let me go after 10,000 years. Also, you cannot embarrass me during the 10,000 years. No problem." Yu Qing Tian agreed. He thought about it and said, "If you want to get out, you may have to suffer some physical pain. Later, I will find a way to prop up the divine mountain. Move toward me at once, a little bit at a time. You can get out in a couple of days at most." Hoi! A golden sword appeared in Yu Qing Tian's hand. The sword turned into a shadow and pierced into the bottom of the divine mountain. Yu Qing Tian shouted, "Get ready." Buzzing, Yu Qing Tian's body glowed. Divine energy was poured into the golden sword. The sword suddenly became solid. Yu Qing Tian shouted, "Up!" He bellowed and smashed at the divine mountain. At the same time, he lifted the sword with both hands. The divine mountain glowed, and then Yu Qing Tian lifted it up a little bit. "Let's go." Luli grabbed the immortal's body with one hand and dashed toward Yu Qing Tian. In one move, he had moved for thousands of feet. However, the powerful inhibition formation of the divine mountain soon backfired and crushed down. This time, Luli was smarter. He hid under the immortal's body, so he did not suffer too much. However, an invisible force came down and injured his internal organs. He spat out some blood. He was slightly wounded. "This is good." Yu Qing Tian checked and breathed out foul air. Just now, he was hurt by the inhibition formation of the divine mountain as well. But that was not a big deal. Luli would be able to get out after dozens of times. "Blood Fairy, get ready." Lu Li's eyes glowed. He said to Blood Fairy, "Wait for my order. When I find a chance, you take action at once and suppress Yu Qing Tian." "Ha! Ha! Then it will be my turn to play with him." Chapter 15:12. Up! Yu Qing Tian lifted the mountain again and again. As a matter of fact, he could not lift it up with his physical strength. Every time he attacked the inhibition formation, the gravity of the mountain would loosen up a bit. That was how Yu Qing Tian could lift it up a bit. Of course, Yu Qing Tian's sword had something to do with his strength. Nobody else could do this. Luli moved again and again. More bones were crushed. He wanted to stop, but Tian did not care. However, Tian didn't care. He lifted the divine mountain again and again. If he didn't move, the divine mountain would still press down. Lu Li knew that Tian was worried about him. He wanted to injure Lu Li so that Lu Li would not be a threat. After all, Lu Li was famous. He had the wrath of Thor, and Tian had been fighting for many years. How could he not notice such a small detail? Stop! When Lu Li was only 2 miles away from Tian, he shouted. He spat out some blood and said, "Chief Yu, let me take a rest. I cannot move." Tian sensed that many bones in Lu Li's body were broken. It was a miserable sight. Tian did not push Lu Li too hard. What if Lu Li changed his mind? Tian nodded and said, "Then you rest for a day. After a day, we will go at one go. When we come out, we can heal." Tian had a good plan. Lu Li could not recover much with a day's rest. At least his bones could heal a bit. When Lu Li came out, his bones would be broken again. By then, Tian could do whatever he wanted. Lu Li closed his eyes and used divine energy to heal. At the same time, he began to discuss with Blood Fairy about what to do. Tian was so powerful that Lu Li could not afford to make any mistake. Otherwise, Tian could kill Lu Li in an instant. After a long time, Lu Li had recovered a bit. After a day, Tian said, "It's about time. How many times do you think you can come out? Do you want to heal after you come out?" "Okay." Lu Li nodded. Tian began to take action. He lifted the mountain and waved his hand. Lu Li dashed out and covered a distance of thousands of feet. The mountain came down again. Lu Li spat out blood again. The bones that had just healed were broken again. Up. On the other hand, Tian did not care about Lu Li's injuries. He kept moving the mountain. Lu Li had to grit his teeth and continue to run. After 3 times, Lu Li was only 1 mile away from Tian. Lu Li would be able to get out after 2 more moves. Tian had been observing Lu Li. Seeing that Lu Li didn't do anything, Tian relaxed a bit. Lu Li's bones were almost all broken. He couldn't do anything even if he wanted to. Even if he wanted to throw out Thunder God's fury, his speed would be affected. At that time, he could easily dodge it. "Lu Li, can you hold on?" Tian was ready to strike while the iron was hot. He shouted in a deep voice, "We can come out in 2 more times. As long as we come out, I have the best healing medicine here. Why don't we go all out?" "All right." Lu Li was pale. He pretended that he was about to die. He looked up in pain and said, "Master, you, try to go lower. The higher you go, the stronger the counterforce will be. This is too painful." "All right." Tian agreed on the surface. As a matter of fact, he was still holding Lu Li high. He could not let Lu Li go until Lu Li hurt him. The sword in Tian's hand glowed as he shouted, "Rise," buzzing. The mountain glowed and then trembled violently. What happened next shocked Tian. The mountain was suspended in the air. It was half a foot above the ground, and then it smashed toward him. At the same time, Lu Li, who was lying on the ground, dying, had a glow in his eyes. He slapped twice with one hand and took out the demon slayer in the other. The glass dragon glowed, and a cold air whooshed on. Tian's expressions changed. He never expected that the mountain could fly up and was coming at him. Out of instinct, he tried to stay close to the ground. However, as soon as he dodged the mountain, Lu Li's suppression and coldness came. The supreme warrior in the divinity reacted quickly. However, he was too close to Lu Li. Tian was still in shock from the change of the mountain. Naturally, his reaction was slower. Buzzing, 2 Wrath of Thunder appeared in Lu Li's hands. He did not throw them at Tian because the bones in his hand were broken. Lu Li chose to detonate them directly. The 2 Wrath of Thunder exploded. Thunder dragons dashed around and covered an area with a radius of 3 miles. Tian was only 1 mile away from Lu Li. "Move!" With that done, Lu Li didn't even look at Tian. He dashed to the other side like a fox. He knew very well how horrifying a supreme warrior in the divinity was. If he dared to stay, he would become a dead body. Lu Li's strategy was simple. When Tian let his guard down, he would let the mountain hit him. Yu Tian would be shocked and confused for a moment. Luli could make use of this time to do many things. Spatial force could not suppress him, and the cold air could not freeze him. But he could be slowed down. The real move was the Wrath of Thunder. Luli did not want to kill Yu Tian with the Wrath of Thunder. He just wanted to injure Yu Tian, to prevent him from running away and to have the mountain crush him. The mountain was under Blood Fairy's control. It could not deter Luli. He sped up to the top of his speed. In the time for one breath, he covered 30 miles and successfully escaped. Boom! After Luli ran away, the mountain came down on him. Luli rolled on the ground and looked back at the mountain. At the same time, he asked, "Blood Fairy, did you do it?" "Yes, master," Blood Fairy replied with excitement. Yu Tian is entangled by thunderbolts. His divine energy is in a mess. Therefore, he cannot run away. He is under the mountain. Well done. Luli was overjoyed. Even though he was in pain in many parts of his body, he grinned. At this moment, he felt that the world was so beautiful and the heavens were so kind to him. Luli, Luli. Luli heard a furious voice. Since the voice came from under the mountain, it was not clear. Yu Tian yelled, "How dare you set me up? I want you dead. I want to cut you into pieces." Ha ha ha. Luli laughed. However, because he laughed too hard, his wounds were affected. His face twisted. He grinned and said, "Yu Tian, you old dog. You want me to surrender to you? Dream on. You tortured me a while ago, didn't you? Don't worry. When I recover, I will take my time to play with you. Do you really think the mountain can hold me down?" Yu Tian's furious voice rang out. "Just you wait. When I get out, I'll definitely skin you alive. Is that so?" Chapter 15:13. For Blood Fairy, suppressing Yu Tian was not a big deal. If Yu Tian wanted to come out, he would have to move out bit by bit. He had to rely on the super strong shield to stop the mountain. Blood Fairy did not have complete control of the mountain, but she could move it to a certain distance. Therefore, she told Luli to focus on healing and that she would report to Yu Tian as soon as possible if anything happened. Yu Tian was injured, but not seriously. Yu Tian's abilities were remarkable to be able to survive 2 bolts of Wrath of Thor. At the critical moment, he released that yellowish shield to block off most of the thunderbolts. That was why he was not injured. Otherwise, even though he was a supreme warrior in the divinity and had a strong body, he would still be injured. After a moment of rest, Yu Tian released the yellowish shield again. He was only at the edge of the mountain. Therefore, he wanted to get out as soon as possible and skin Luli. That was the only way to vent his anger. He had been overthinking. When he lifted the divine mountain up, it suddenly moved at high speed, moving dozens of miles in an instant. Then it came crashing down. Even though Yu Tian had moved for hundreds of feet, he realized that he was at the center of the mountain. How is this possible? Yu Tian's face was pressed against the ground. His eyes were wide open, filled with disbelief. Just now, when the mountain flew away, Yu Tian could understand that there was something wrong with the inhibition formations. But now, the mountain moved on its own and pressed Yu Tian to the center. Clearly, something was wrong. Someone was controlling the mountain. Did the mountain let Luli go on purpose to suppress him? Yu Tian was even more shocked when he came to this conclusion. The 5 mountains had existed since the ancient demon's burial ground came into being. They had always been in the Misty Soul Mountain. No one had ever been able to control the 5 divine mountains. There had been experts who had set their sights on the 5 divine mountains, but they had all failed on the verge of success. Was it Luli who was controlling the mountains? But how many years had it been since Luli ascended? Also, he had been pressed down and did not do anything. Yu Tian had been trying to sense Luli's situation, but did not notice anything strange. If it was not Luli, then was there a mysterious warrior helping Luli? But if there were powerful warriors nearby, how could Yu Tian not sense it? Supreme warriors in the divinity had strong senses. If there were powerful warriors nearby, Yu Tian would have sensed it. Since that was the case, what was the problem? Yu Qingtian couldn't figure it out. The restrictions here had been set up for many years, so it was impossible for the tomb guards to be here. Even if there were such puppets, why would they help Lu Li? Yu Qingtian had a headache. Cold sweat trickled down his forehead. After pondering for a moment, he decided to continue breaking out of the encirclement. Firstly, he wanted to see if he could get out. Secondly, he wanted to confirm if this divine mountain was really controlled by someone. He was deliberately suppressing him. Boom! He used the shield to support it, and then his body suddenly shot forward, covering more than 300 meters in one go. The backlash from the divine mountain had weakened a little, allowing him to travel a little further. This time, there was no movement from the sacred mountain. Yu Qingtian was slightly excited. He ignored the injuries on his body and continued moving. Once, twice, 10 times, Yu Qingtian spent 10 days and successfully moved 5 miles. There was no movement from the divine mountain. This ignited his passion. If he could get out, he could kill Lu Li easily. He had been sensing that Lu Li was outside the mountain. Continue. Yu Qingtian moved with all his might. He didn't hesitate to consume his origin blood essence and top-level healing pellets. He was worried that things might change after Lu Li was healed. Therefore, he must get out as soon as possible. 3 days later, Yu Qingtian moved another 1.5 miles. Right at that moment, he heard a muffled voice. Yu Qingtian, you must be tired. Do you need me to help you? Lu Li. Yu Qingtian's heart skipped a beat upon hearing the voice. He had a bad feeling. Finally, something had gone wrong. As soon as Lu Li finished his words, the mountain began to move along the ground. It moved forward for several miles, and Yu Qingtian was back at the center of the mountain. *T. Yu Qingtian couldn't help but swear despite his shrewdness. What he worried about the most had happened. Lu Li could control the mountain. Yu Qingtian was scared. If Lu Li could control the mountain again and again, he would be crushed to death no matter how strong his defense was. Wait. Soon, Yu Qingtian was relieved. The mountain could not fly too high, or else he could fly out in an instant. Lu Li would not do such a stupid thing. Since the mountain could not fly too high, then the mountain's gravity would not crush him to death. On this thought, Yu Qingtian was relieved. Then his face turned gloomy. He had been too careless this time. Half a month ago, Lu Li was trapped down there, and Yu Qingtian was outside. The tables had turned. The tables had turned. Now he was on the bottom like a dead dog, and Lu Li was on the outside. How long will I be trapped here this time? Will Lu Li keep me here forever? Yu Qingtian thought of many possibilities. After a moment, he calmed down a bit. Lu Li could not stay here forever. As long as Lu Li left, the mountain would not be able to hold him down anymore. Yu Qingtian could figure out a way to get out. How can Lu Li control the mountain? Yu Qingtian could not figure it out. He found Lu Li more and more enigmatic. Lu Li deserved his fame. Since Lu Li could make such a name in the divinity, he must not be underestimated. Yu Qingtian had the chance to kill Lu Li. However, he did something stupid, which led to his current situation. Lu Li did not mind Yu Qingtian. Instead, he talked to Blood Fairy. Blood Fairy, do you have a way to kill Yu Qingtian? If he could kill a supreme warrior in the divinity, Lu Li would have a greater sense of achievement. Yu Qingtian was his archenemy. Naturally, Lu Li would not miss the chance to kill him. Not now, Blood Fairy replied, which disappointed Lu Li. I cannot control the mountain completely. This man is very strong. I don't even have the courage to fly the mountain, or he will run away at once. The mountain's gravity alone cannot crush him to death. Then do you have a way to control the mountain completely? Lu Li asked after some thoughts. No, Blood Fairy replied. To control the mountain completely, you may have to do it in person. The God Mountain was actually a magic treasure, a very powerful magic treasure. Moreover, the God Mountain had a certain level of spirituality. There should be an artifact spirit inside the God Mountain. If one wanted to completely control the God Mountain, they would need to subdue this artifact spirit. I'm a spiritual being, and I cannot tame other spiritual beings. You must do it in person. A powerful artifact? Is it really the primordial treasure? Li's eyes glowed. If it really was the primordial treasure, his abilities would soar. He might not be able to kill a supreme warrior in the divinity, but he would at least have the ability to fight against an average supreme warrior in the divinity. Fight against a supreme warrior in the divinity? All of a sudden, Li was excited. If he could fight against a supreme warrior in the divinity, would it mean that he could go back to the divinity? Chapter 15:14. Soon, Li calmed down. He realized that he had been overthinking. So what if he could take control of the mountain? The mountain could only contain one supreme warrior in the divinity, but it could not kill one. How many supreme warriors in the divinity were there among the four supreme gods? How many were more powerful than Yu Qingtian? For example, could the mountain suppress the master of the craftsman's sect? Anyways, Li was determined to get the sacred mountain. He and Blood Fairy began to talk about how to take control of the mountain. Blood Fairy reached out a tentacle and pierced it into Li's soul. She transmitted what she sensed and what she did in the mountain to Li. Li closed his eyes to digest the information. 2 hours later, he finally understood what had happened to Blood Fairy. Previously, he and Blood Fairy studied the formations in the mountain. Li's understanding of laws in heaven and earth and Blood Fairy's unique skills and formations made Li able to understand the formations in the mountain quickly. As a result, Blood Fairy's understanding of the formations in the mountain was progressing fast. It could be said that Li and Blood Fairy were a perfect match. Without Blood Fairy's help, Li would not be able to control the mountain. Without Li's help, Blood Fairy would not have been able to do it either, because she had no understanding of laws in heaven and earth. Blood Fairy cracked a formation and entered the core area of the mountain. That was where the key to control the mountain was. Blood Fairy fused with the formation, and with a few tweaks, she was able to control the mountain. Blood Fairy could alter formations, but only 1 or 2 lines. Therefore, it was impossible for her to control the mountain completely. There was an artifact spirit in the mountain. That being could control all the formations. Only by taming that artifact spirit could the mountain be controlled. How to tame the artifact spirit? That was a big problem. If it were not for Blood Fairy, Li would have thought that it would be impossible to achieve. The artifact spirit was hiding in the deepest part of the mountain. To tame the artifact spirit, Li must find it. Did Li go to the deepest part of the mountain? The mountain was terrifyingly strong. Not even Yu Qingtian could crack the mountain with his strongest attack, let alone Li. Otherwise, Yu Qingtian would not have been trapped down there. Since he couldn't go in, how could he subdue the artifact spirit hidden inside? Could it be that it was muttering, "Artifact spirit, come out quickly. I'll take you to eat something good"? Or was he trying to coerce and bribe the artifact spirit? If he did that, Li felt that it would be an insult to his intelligence. Fortunately, Li had Blood Fairy, who was also a spiritual being. She could enter and exit the mountain freely. If he wanted to subdue the spirits in the divine mountain, he would need Blood Fairy's help. Of course, Blood Fairy could not do it herself. She needed Li to figure out a way. Li sat down and began to think. After all, there was no need to worry about Yu Qingtian. With Blood Fairy keeping an eye on him, Yu Qingtian would not be able to do anything. Li thought about it for a long time. He even took out some clean water to wash off the blood and put on a clean robe. Finally, he let Qi Shi'er out from the wicked bead. It had been a long time since they last met. Li was afraid that she would let her imagination run wild. "Brother," Qi Shi'er exclaimed happily as soon as she came out. Her nose twitched as she asked, "What's that smell? Does it smell like blood?" Li had just taken a bath nearby. He was covered in blood. Naturally, the smell of blood was strong. His wounds had basically healed. There was nothing wrong with his appearance. Only his face was a bit pale. Li explained with a smile, "There is indeed the smell of blood. There is a man under the mountain, Yu Qingtian of the Overlord's mansion." "Who? Yu Qingtian?" Qi Shi'er was a simple girl, but she had heard a lot about the southwest of the land of Yuyan. She asked in surprise, "That Yu Qingtian?" Yes. Luli patted Chi Shear's silky hair and said, "Okay, don't ask so many questions now. I have to figure out a way to take control of the mountain and then suppress Yu Qingtian completely. Sit next to me and cultivate." Okay. Chi Shear sat on the side obediently. For her, as long as she could be with Luli, even if she had to sit quietly or cultivate, she would feel at ease somehow. Qi Juanfeng's death had reduced her sense of security. Sitting alone would make her feel terrified. Luli paid no more attention to Qi Shear. He sat with his legs crossed to think. He sorted out the information Blood Fairy gave him and tried to figure out a way to take control of the mountain. Blood Fairy. 2 hours later, Luli asked, "Can you talk to that artifact spirit?" Blood Fairy replied, "If it is willing to talk, then it should be okay. This artifact spirit is a spirit as well and has high intelligence." "Okay." Luli nodded. "Go and talk to it at once. Find out what it wants." Blood Fairy agreed and went to talk to that artifact spirit. Luli was hopeful. He thought about it and realized that he had to start with the artifact spirit. If this was a treasure of primordial spirit, then the artifact spirit must be highly intelligent. Blood Fairy had confirmed this. In other words, the artifact spirit was the core that controlled the treasure. Without the artifact spirit, the treasure could not be taken control. Therefore, to take control of the treasure, Luli had to start with the artifact spirit. "No." An hour later, Blood Fairy said, "The artifact spirit won't talk to me. The core formation of the mountain is too complicated. I can't even get close to it. I have tried many times, but it keeps hiding. I cannot get close." "Is that so?" Luli put on a fierce expression. "If it doesn't want to come out, force it out. Keep destroying the formation, and it will come out." "Destroy the formation?" Blood Fairy was astonished, but she quickly said, "Master, you can't be reckless. The formation has the ability to recover, but if you damage it too much, the mountain will be destroyed. If that supreme warrior from the divinity escapes, you will be in danger." "Ha." Luli smiled and said, "Just take it easy. Don't destroy the main inhibition formation of the mountain. Also, remember all the diagrams. You can fix them later if they are destroyed. Just listen to me. If you destroy part of the formation, the artifact spirit will come out." Blood Fairy did not understand many things, but Luli did. If the artifact spirit did not have intelligence, then it would be fine. But if it did, it would not stand by and watch the treasure being destroyed. This was its home. If the treasure was destroyed, it would have no home, and its existence would be meaningless. Luli thought about it and realized that this was the only way. The artifact spirit was hiding in the mountain, and there was nothing he could do to it. Chapter 15:15. Blood Fairy spent several days to record the formation diagram of the core of the mountain and send it to Luli. Luli and Blood Fairy discussed together. Eventually, they picked several small formations as breakthroughs. The destruction of those formations would not affect the overall formation of the mountain. It would be easy to repair them in the future. Blood Fairy began to take action. Luli did not show any change in expression. He was determined when he gave the order. As a matter of fact, he was nervous as well, because no one knew how powerful an artifact spirit's divine ability was. What if Blood Fairy angered the artifact spirit, and the artifact spirit used the power of the formation to kill Blood Fairy? Or the artifact spirit might vent its anger on Luli and crush him to death with the mountain. Anything was possible. Luli decided to take a gamble. If he won, he would have a piece of amazing artifact that could enhance his abilities and give him the ability to fight against supreme warriors in the divinity. Of course, Luli believed that the chances of him suffering a crushing defeat were slim. The worst-case scenario was that Blood Fairy would be killed. Therefore, Luli was nervous. Blood Fairy was important to him. He closed his eyes and focused on the spiritual connection with Blood Fairy, trying to sense her situation vaguely. Blood Fairy had begun to crack the formation. Her tentacles could be integrated into the patterns, and she could change them quietly. Once the patterns were changed, the formation would change. It was too easy to destroy the formation. Following the discussion with Lu Li, Blood Fairy chose a small formation to destroy. In a moment, she changed several patterns, and that small formation was destroyed. Buzzing, the mountain trembled and glowed. Yuqing Tian was still in a daze, not knowing what was going on. He felt a strong pressure coming down on him, breaking several of his bones. Blood Fairy's destruction of the small formation had triggered a backlash from the main formation of the mountain. Yuqing Tian was caught in the crossfire and suffered for no reason. The artifact spirit did not take any action. Blood Fairy took action again. She dashed toward another small formation and began to destroy it. When this small formation was destroyed, Blood Fairy finally realized that the artifact spirit was getting restless. The core of the formation began to tremble. Following that, a white shadow sneaked out and stopped 100 feet away from Blood Fairy. Then, Blood Fairy sensed something. "Master," Blood Fairy replied, "the artifact spirit has appeared. It told me to get out, or it will attack me." "How can it attack? Do you know how?" Lu Li was getting more and more nervous. Blood Fairy replied telepathically, "It shouldn't be able to kill me with the formation. I'm a spirit, after all, and I'm inside the formation. If he messed around, the entire formation would definitely explode, and the Sacred Mountain would be destroyed. So, if it attacks me, it will probably devour me directly. This artifact spirit is quite powerful, so I probably won't be its match." Lu Li thought about it. After a while, he said, "Talk to him and see if you can make him surrender to me." Even though Lu Li knew it was impossible, he still wanted to try. Blood Fairy sent out a wave of energy. She was communicating in a special way as a spirit. But a moment later, Blood Fairy said, "No, it's just warning me to leave immediately or it will devour me." Devour? Lu Li suddenly thought of something. The mention of devouring reminded him of something, the dragon's soul in his mind. The dragon's soul was strong. It could devour any energy that entered its soul. How strong was the soul of Emperor Z, the master of the immortal's body? Emperor Z tried to take over Emperor Z's body, but was suppressed by the dragon's soul. "Let's have a bet." Lu Li was struggling. A moment later, he made up his mind. "Blood Fairy, find a way to enrage the artifact spirit and lead it into my soul. I will find a way to control it. Lead it into your soul." Blood Fairy was surprised. "Master, please think twice. Your soul is your foundation. Once the artifact spirit does something, you will die immediately. Do as I say." Lu Li did not explain. He gave an order in a domineering manner. Blood Fairy had to carry out the order. She ignored the existence of the artifact spirit and continued to destroy the formation. Finally, the artifact spirit was enraged. The artifact spirit roared and tangled with the blood immortal. The two spirits were in each other. They were devouring each other. But it was clear that Blood Fairy was weaker. The glow was dimming. "Master, I'm out," Blood Fairy said, and ran away from the mountain. Lu Li stood up and leaned against the side of the mountain. His back was pressed against the mountain. The artifact spirit chased after Blood Fairy in rage. Blood Fairy came out from the mountain and entered Lu Li's body. The artifact spirit hesitated for a moment, but did not go after Lu Li. Lu Li made up his mind at once. Blood Fairy continued to destroy the formation. Blood Fairy pierced a tentacle into the mountain and continued to destroy the formation. The artifact spirit was about to go back when he came after Lu Li again. Blood Fairy went back into Lu Li's body just in time. The artifact spirit was faster. He dashed out of the mountain and entered Lu Li's body. The artifact spirit was not very intelligent. He moved through Lu Li's body and was led into Lu Li's soul by Blood Fairy. Lu Li trembled. This was the most critical moment. If the dragon's soul could not take down the artifact spirit, then his soul would collapse. He would either die or become an idiot. This artifact spirit was not an average beast soul. It was highly likely that the artifact spirit was born from the chaos. Therefore, Lu Li did not know how strong the artifact spirit was. He had to take a gamble. He pinned all his hopes on the dragon's soul. Buzzing, when the artifact spirit entered Lu Li's soul, The dragon's soul glowed in a silver light. The dragon's soul moved around and began to attack the invading artifact spirit. Since Blood Fairy and Luli had a spiritual connection, she was a part of Luli. Naturally, the dragon's soul did not attack. In Luli's soul, two shadows began to fight. One was the artifact spirit like a winged tiger or a qilin, and the other was a silver dragon. Nice! Luli calmed himself down and observed for a moment. He was thrilled. The dragon soul did not disappoint him. Clearly, it was stronger than the artifact spirit. The dragon soul was devouring the artifact spirit and suppressing it. The artifact spirit was growing weaker. Clearly, the dragon soul was consuming its energy. Master, the dragon soul is so strong. Blood Fairy hid on the side and said with fear, "The enchanted soul in your soul is so strong. Even if the artifact spirit is 10 times stronger, it may not be a match for the dragon soul." Phew. Seeing that the artifact spirit was getting weaker, Luli breathed in relief. Then, he trembled in excitement. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.